The following is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
Hey guys, this is Matt Seidel, and you're listening to Keeping It Strong Style.
Yo, this is Rich Latta from One Nation Radio. This is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We present to you the Ace of Podcasts, Keeping It Strong Style. Let's go. It's the Ace of Podcasts, Keeping It Strong Style. Covering New Japan, they ready to hold it down. Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Josh. Come and hit a job out in Barrio the Frogs. From the Tokyo Dome over to the G1. Social Suplex is the network where we can get it done. I'ma chill and let them have it, cause this is just an intro. Keeping the strong style, 6 stars from the get-go, boy. Yeah, from Tampa Bay to the Tokyo Dome, this is Keeping It Strong Style with your hosts, Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Joshua Smith. And thank you for listening.
Welcome to Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Jeremy Donovan here with Chris Samsa from VoicesOfWrestling.com. On today's show, we'll be looking at some stats from 2020, answering your question, and covering all latest news in the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling. You can support our show by subscribing to the Social Suplex Podcast Network or to Keeping It Strong Style on the podcast app of your choice and leaving a rating and review. You can also get all the podcasts and columns over at socialsuplex.com. Make sure you check out our Pro Wrestling Tees store, ProWrestlingTees.com/socialsuplex. That's where you can get your official Keeping It Strong Style t-shirt. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider making a one-time or monthly donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and clicking on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. And this episode is brought to you by NJPW EXT, the only browser extension for NJPWworld.com with features like dark mode, improved translations and layouts, custom and shared playlists, synchronized viewing parties, and much more. It takes NJPW World to the next level. Visit njpwext.us today for details. Chris, how you doing, man?
Hey, I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Thanks for jumping in. The young boy is out on vacation, so how to bring in, heavy hitter.
Heavy hitter, yeah, with a lot to talk about.
Especially during this dry time, when the Puro pause, as you called it, all the Japanese shows are on shutdown right now due to the coronavirus, including our beloved New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Listen, if anyone can pull a lot out of a little, it's me. So I'm happy to be helpful here. I'm excited to talk New Japan. Haven't had a chance to talk New Japan in a while, so I'm looking forward to it, even if we're just making stuff up.
Just pulling it out off the fly right here, man.
Yep.
So you are the stat man. You provide a lot of stats for Kevin Kelly and the NJPW broadcast crew. You do a lot of great stat work on VoicesOfWrestling.com and SportProWrestling.com. So one thing I want to talk to you about, today is, the stats in 2020. We've had, January and February full of shows, a lot of big matches, a lot of big moments. Just want to see if there was any kind of key stats that you've noticed so far in 2020.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest standout for me is that it looks like, I guess I shouldn't talk about 2020 in the past tense. It's still going to happen. But it looks like 2020 is the year of LIJ. So we've got top 3 winners right now in overall records in 2020. We've got Tetsuya Naito at 17-5, Shingo Takagi at 18-3, and Hiromu Takahashi at 17-5 also. So those are the guys that are getting all of the wins. So and Bushi's up there too. He's got 15 wins. You've got Sonata and Evil with 11 and 15. So those guys, again, they're having a workhorse year when it comes down to it, that whole group. But in turn, they're getting all these victories, and it would be tough to beat, those top 3, Naito, Takagi, and Takahashi right now. They're all champions. They are all strong champions. So I don't know if the plan was for them to build them up as the kind of undeniable force of New Japan, but that seems to be where they were headed. I mean, even Hiromu's got a +12 fall differential, which is just outrageous in 22 matches. So he's also getting the pins. So that's my biggest takeaway on the winning side of things. A guy that seems like they're trying to build up is Toa Hanare. He's only 6-11 overall on the year, but he's 1-0. He got the pin at the Tokyo Dome, and so he's a guy I think I would keep an eye on. He's a guy I was going to watch pretty closely in the New Japan Cup, because it looked like maybe they were going to give him one of those big wins, one of those kind of establishing, like he's moving up the card type wins. So
yeah, it feel like that opening round match with Ishii was kind of one of those ones to look out for. Like he could have pulled like a big upset there and kind of made a run in New Japan Cup.
Yeah. And I didn't really see a path much further than that. But I mean, when it comes down to it, Ishii and Hinare were two of the challengers for that Never title. They were the two of the guys that were talking about getting after that Never title. And I think if Hinare were to get that win over Tomohiro Ishii, that could give him kind of an inside track on that next Never challenger. Because I think Shingo's going to defend for a while here.
Yeah, I think Shingo is going to be, kind of rocking that Never title for a good part of this year. I can see him having a very long, lengthy title run.
Yeah, and I'm hopeful for that because I think Shingo's one of those guys that can wrestle. He can wrestle big guys and he can wrestle little guys and he can go. So, and we saw that last year through Best of Super Juniors and then the G1. He was just incredible through both tournaments. So I think that they got to line up some diverse challengers for him. And I hope that I was hopeful, that Hinare, that was going to be one of those like defining moments for him. And I am still hopeful for that. I don't know. Nobody knows what the New Japan Cup's going to look like or if they're even going to do it. Haven't heard anything as of this recording.
Yeah, they've been like radio silent as far as what's going to happen with the schedule and New Japan Cup. As of right now, they're still scheduled to kick off with the 15th or 16th, I think it is. And, those are still New Japan Cup shows, but obviously they're going to have to do some kind of reconfiguration of that tournament and that tour. So I'm very curious to see when we're going to get an update or an announcement, or they're going to cancel those shows, keep them going. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and if you look for cues with some other companies over there, I mean, I think Dragon Gate's coming back and they're going to start doing some shows. But I mean, New Japan is really the company they're going to probably be the most careful. They've got the biggest crowds, and they're probably the most dependent on public perception. So it's tough to say. It's tough to say what they'll do, and I'm sure we'll talk more about that as the day goes on here. So yeah. I mean, in the world of stats, I mean, there's not a lot. Unfortunately, there's not a lot going on.
Yeah.
So those are my biggest key takeaways. I mean, is that like we may be seeing the further of the ascent of LIJ, which is something to watch out for.
So what are Evil and Sonata's stats looking like? I'm assuming they're like on the losing end of things here.
So Sonata's got a 0 fall differential. But he's taken 2. No, that's not him. He's taken 1 tag team losing fall and he's won 1 tag team match and he's got 2 trios winning falls. So he is doing okay. Evil has a +1 fall differential. He's at 15-6 overall. So yeah, those guys are further down the list here. Nothing, I mean, but still, I would say like protected. Like it's once you fall into those negative fall differentials, that's when you start to know that you're the pin eater, you're the Bushi.
Right.
So he's only at a -2 too. So I mean, these guys are being, they're being protected to a certain extent. I mean, there's a lot of belts on that group right now. So unless they're setting up challengers, I think it's tough for them to eat a pin, except for really, I mean, when it comes down to it, it's not an Evil. The only 2 guys that can really take some pins right now.
Right. And I feel like they've been trying to set up a story where those 2 guys are kind of been on like the lower end of LIJ and are trying to set their comebacks up. And I feel like New Japan Cup was going to be a big turn for both those guys, and potentially with those guys facing off in that bottom block there, it would have been very interesting, especially, former tag partners, former tag champions, both kind of in a slump right now. That would have been interesting to see what happens there.
Yeah. And, there's a part of me that's hopeful that they just reblock it all and we still get that kind of lineup.
Yeah, that would be great. Is there anyone that's surprising in the negative kind of standpoint, negative fall differential?
Let's see. Let's check it out. I mean, you've got your usuals. You've got Dookie up there, negative. Every match he's lost, he's taken the pin. So Honma, Nakanishi, Rocky Romero, -3. I mean, that's not great. No, I mean, I'm sure Chase Owens is going to work himself out of here. He's only 1-9 right now. So like Bullet Club is on the other end of things. They're all losing all the time. So, and then you got Kota Ibushi at -1. So that would probably be the most surprising thing, is that we haven't really seen Ibushi kind of bounce back from his losses in the Double Gold Dash. So I think that obviously his time as tag team champion is probably going to be fruitful in that way, but it seems like Tanahashi is doing the legwork there in the sense of the pins. Right. And we know that that's a pretty important factor to how you get built up in New Japan. Right.
So Tanahashi's probably gotten I think he's gotten like almost all the falls in their tag matches, hasn't he? Or at least most of them.
Let me see. Let me click here. Tanahashi. So he's at a +8, and in the tag matches, he's only got 1. So, but I think the championship match was his only pure tag team 2-on-2 tag team match.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, and and we haven't really seen that progress. I'm still hoping to get that Dangerous Tekkers match.
Yeah, that I'm definitely looking forward to that, and we've got some. It looked like they were definitely teasing that with how the brackets lined up there at the top with those opening matches with I believe it was Ibushi and Sabre and Tanahashi and Taichi.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if they were going to go, one versus the other, like one was going to win and one wasn't, or if we were going to get kind of the dream match or the faction match, which could have been fun too in its own way. Either Ibushi versus Tanahashi or Taichi versus Sabre. I always like when they throw that in the tournaments, because you got to see how they strategize.
Yeah, it seems like there was a lot of scenarios set up in this tournament for faction members and tag team partners to face off. With that situation, though, I felt like we were going to end up with a one Tekker against one of the Golden Aces to kind of set that tag title matchup further. And they're definitely telling this story right now of Ibushi kind of, he's still on that, that slump from the Double Gold Dash, and now he's teaming up with Tanahashi, but kind of like in the shadows of Tanahashi, and they're almost telling a similar story to when he was teaming with Kenny Omega before Kenny left New Japan, where he was kind of in that shadow of Kenny, and he seconded Kenny during the Dominion match against Okada, and was really in the background that year, and they're almost saying that it's kind of the same story up a little bit here.
Seems like there's a lot of places that are going back to that story.
Yeah.
of when Kota and Kenny were hanging out together. So it was a good story though. So there's no shame in going back to it. But yeah, I mean, part of me hopes. I mean, I'm Kota Ibushi guy. Like he's my guy. Like he's the guy that I want to see triumphant at the end of, I guess, this cycle. But it could be a classic New Japan, break them down and build them back up kind of thing. But who knows how long that story lasts. Only Gato has a plan. Right,
and we don't know how this break has affected that story, because we don't know what his New Japan Cup path would have been. He could have been out in the first round, or he could have, went on a run and maybe even gotten to the finals or something.
Yeah, it wouldn't have surprised me if ZSJ took him out in the first round, but it also, again, same deal. It wouldn't have surprised me if he got past, say, Taichi and then Shingo or Will. I mean, like, there's that could have been a really, this was going to be a great tournament. Really bummed.
I know.
And I don't think there's any way they fit it into 5 days. But those would be good shows. But I mean, you got Colt Cabana hanging out with AEW now, and like they'd have to modify this. I don't think this bracket's going to look the same regardless of when they come back. So, yeah. Other than that, I mean, nothing super surprising, but it's a pretty small sample size when it comes to New Japan. The last time I was looking at these numbers really in depth was when I was putting together numbers for the Voices of Wrestling ebook, and we're looking at hundreds and hundreds of matches. So
right, yeah.
It is a long-term company. So, and that's really what I appreciate about New Japan. I think that's why the stats kind of work themselves out, because they build the story themselves, and they do a nice job. They're pretty respectful of this stuff.
Right, and the one thing too I love about New Japan, like, kind of like AEW, but AEW, they're putting their stats out. You see the stats on their website and on the the lower thirds when guys come out, and they have the rankings that come out every week. But with New Japan, even though they don't drop their quote unquote stats or rankings, if you look at like your stats based on where people are on the card and how people are getting booked, they really do line up. The guys who are winning a lot, they're in the main events, they're challenging for the titles. The guys that are losing a lot, they're in your opening matches, or they're lower down in the card. And so, yeah, I just definitely love that sports aspect and just how wins and losses matter in a company like New Japan.
Yeah, and I think part of how I built like the you mentioned my rankings, so like part of how I built the rankings was to like mimic what was going on in New Japan, but it's also just like I've ported that over to AEW, and even I've started to play with NXT, and like New Japan's still the one that makes the most sense, and just like the actual math of it, and the time they get on TV, the time they get in the ring, where they're placed on the card. Again, like it's very sensible, and like I'm part of a lot of conversations where like, yeah, booking wrestling's really hard, but it's also really easy. If you just like you look at it, you're like, well, that guy's going to be a star, so he should win, right? And it's like, that's the truth. Or like, that guy's your champion, so he shouldn't be eating a bunch of pins in non-title matches. So yeah, I mean, even right now by my rankings, like you've got Okada at number 4, and he's still in that conversation of one of the best, even though he's been kind of quiet. But he had a big win against Taichi, and he had the big win against Kota Ibushi, and Okada's always going to be in that conversation too. Now I don't think now's the time to pull the trigger on him again, but he's always going to be a guy that you can get a meaningful win over when he's not a champion too.
Right.
And if someone beats Okada, like they pretty much get up to the top of the line, like because he can play gatekeeper for a little while, and take a couple of losses, and eventually they'll just heat him back up, and he'll be Okada again. He'll do another year at the top, which is probably what we're in for, at least within the next couple of years. So yeah, it's just like, it's really sensible stuff. And there are other companies that have figured that out, but they usually figure it out short term. And New Japan, I think you could go back 3, 4, 5 years and it would all line up.
Yeah. So who's in the top 10 as of right now?
So my top 10 right now, overall, Naito, Shingo, Hiromu, Okada, Tanahashi, Jay White, Sho, Yo, Bushi, and Sonata.
Nice. So you mentioned definitely dominated by LIJ, and yeah, it seems like this was an LIJ year. We got Naito with the double titles. They have the Never 6-man title. Shingo has the Never title. Hiromu has the junior title. They're getting ready to potentially challenge for the junior tag team titles, him and Bushi. So yeah, LIJ definitely dominating those rankings there.
Yeah, and like right behind that, then you've got like kind of that next tier is Ospreay, Zack Sabre Jr., Taguchi, Goto, somehow Kojima got in there too. So, but yeah, so that's kind of that next tier. So, and that makes sense to me too. So, and then surprisingly, you got Kenta at 3 and 10. I mean, like he's the that's kind of one of those things where like there's going to be kind of competition matches and there's going to be conflict matches, right? So like Kenta built himself a conflict match by going and beating up Tetsuya Naito at the end of Wrestle Kingdom. He had no statistical right to be in that conversation, but sometimes if you can create a conflict, you end up with the title match, and that's not just in pro wrestling either. I think there's real true shoot sports that happens in too. So, but yeah, every now and then you got to just pull the trigger on something like that. So Kenta was one of those guys too. I had fielded a lot of questions of like, how do you feel about Kenta being in a title match? And I was like, sometimes, the champion decides who they want to fight. So,
right. Like with Kenta, that was the whole heat there. Like he's not deserving of a title shot, but he's getting one. But you want to see him get beat for what he did to Naito. And obviously they worked because they sold out, Sakujo Hall for that show. And so that was the heat building up to that match. Undeserving challenger getting the shot. And also, too, I think with him getting a title shot, you can also have to look at his reputation. I mean, Japanese wrestling legend, He was a junior heavyweight that won the GHC title. Like, all the work that he did in Japan and just his body of work, it's hard to argue that he's not, like, a world-class wrestler. Like, he's definitely capable of defeating anybody and being a champion.
Yeah, I mean, he has the pedigree too. I mean, like, that's the thing. So and also, on New Japan, on the business side of things, like, how long do you have Kenta at this level? Like, he's not old, but I mean, why not heat him up, right? And it could create some dissension with Bullet Club. I mean, there's a lot of different directions they can go here now. Because you had Jay White talking like, oh, of course I knew this was going to happen, but Jay White's not the kind of guy. He's not the kind of character that's going to sit around and be like, and let someone be at the top of his unit. So I think there's a lot of directions they can go there. I think the match with Kenta and Naito was great. I think it was exactly what it needed to be. It had me biting at near falls. So, and they sold out, man. I mean, like, drawing power is a win here. So, and I think part of it is a little bit of a dig at WWE and the fact that they wasted their time with Kenta. So, and I don't know that they would ever say that, but it kind of, they're like, hey, this guy's great. Like, let's use him to the best of his ability. So, yeah, I mean, so it's been an interesting year so far for New Japan. I'm curious to see how they put it all back together once they come back from this pause.
Yeah, I mean, if anybody can do it, it's Gato, and I mean, they just have a stacked roster right there. So yeah, I'm sure whatever the master plan is, they're gonna figure it out, and we're gonna be ending up with another great year full of awesome matches and moments.
Yeah, if I had to bet, I'd say Gato's got a plan A, B, and C, and whenever they pull the trigger to come back, he'll just put one of the plans in motion.
Yeah. Well, that pretty much wraps it up for the stats talk there. One thing I also want to talk about is the Wrestling Observer Newsletter Awards. So the awards dropped last week in the recent edition of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, which you can get on FOWonline.com when you subscribe. And so all the awards came out. So I just want to go through the categories, talk about who got ranked and the winners and stuff like that. So we'll start at the top here. We have the Lou Thesz Ric Flair Award, the Wrestler of the Year. Coming in 10, Kenny Omega. 9, Hiroshi Tanahashi. 8, Jon Moxley. 7, Kota Ibushi. 6, Kento Miyahara. 5, Adam Cole. 4, Cody Rhodes. Number 3, Will Ospreay. Number 2, Kazuchika Okada. And then coming in first was Chris Jericho.
Yeah, so I think that those top 3 could have landed in any order for me, and I would have respected it. But Jericho, for what he's meant to the business this year, both with his I mean, really going all the way back to the first trip to Japan with Kenny Omega. I mean, but really all of that kind of culminated this year with AEW and continuing to work New Japan. I don't think that it would have been tough to go a different direction than Chris Jericho at number 1. So I understand why a lot of people would have voted for him. Now, in ring, if you're just looking at that, or like the pure drawing power, like number of tickets sold, I mean, you've got to look at Okada. But yeah, no, I have no issue with Chris Jericho winning Wrestler of the Year in 2020. As surprising as that is, if you would have told me that 3 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, if you would have told me that like 5-10 years ago, Chris Jericho is still going to be going, and he's going to be on top of his game, and he's going to be the Wrestling Observer Newsletter Wrestler of the Year, I'd be like, what? The guy that's playing in Fozzy right now?
And, yeah, via a trip to Japan, really. I mean, via an angle with Kenny Omega, that really kind of set things in motion. I mean, like, who would have believed it?
Right. And so, yeah, and like you mentioned, like, he had just impact on, New Japan and AEW. I mean, AEW, pretty much a startup promotion, and being able to draw those TV ratings, pay-per-view buys. He hasn't lost a quarter hour on TV yet, and he's just so valuable to that promotion. And AEW's had great success, and then obviously his stuff in New Japan has been great as well. So being able just to be dominant in both companies and help both companies, especially on the New Japan side, helping with the New Japan World subscriptions. Obviously, whenever Jericho is featured on New Japan, we see a little spike in New Japan World subscriptions in the West. So he's been valuable to both companies.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's the trick for Wrestler of the Year. I mean, it's really it's a all encompassing, drawing power, TV ratings, tickets, and to have some sort of global presence. So and Chris Jericho certainly has that.
Yeah. So next we had the Most Outstanding Wrestler Award. So number 10, we had Kenny Omega. Number 9, Adam Cole. Number 8, Kento Miyahara. Number 7, Rey Fenix. 6, Johnny Gargano. Number 5, Tomohiro Ishii. Number 4, Shingo Takagi. Number 3, Kota Ibushi. Number 2, Kazuchika Okada. And number 1, Will Ospreay.
I mean, this was one that it would have been just by pure volume of work and of high quality work. Like Will Ospreay was the guy. So there was really there's no way around this. I mean, he wrestled in so many good matches and so many matches in general. So it would be tough to say anybody else had a more outstanding in-ring year than Will Ospreay. And to be honest, even looking back at a couple of previous years, like Ospreay would have won a couple of previous years too. So even over himself.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the body of work he had in 2019, and not only just a body of work, but the quality of it also. Wrestling all over the world, having 4-star plus matches pretty much every time he's out there, even in tag team scenarios. This guy was all over the place. You know, he's won several websites Wrestler of the Year award. I mean, he won our Keeping It Strong Style Wrestler of the Year last year, and I know he's won several awards and just had a great year in 2019. And we said that whole top 5 there, all New Japan guys dominated, just showing you the quality of the in-ring work in New Japan. Despite what guys like Nick Aldis complain about, there's a reason why people love New Japan, and just the quality of matchups. This shows you right there that look at that top 5 is all dominated with the New Japan guys.
Yeah, and even all the way down to Ishii. I mean, like who outside of New Japan would you take over Ishii? I mean, it depends how you feel about Rey Fenix. I mean, he's the first guy on this list that I think like, yeah, I'd love to see him in New Japan. But even so, I think like, well, they've got Ryu Lee. So yeah. I mean, as much as I'd like to see that matchup, I mean, like, that's New Japan's got the roster that you would want if you're trying to put together a great in-ring product. And I think that's why it transcends things like language and time zones and things like that. It's because like you put it on the TV and it speaks to you and they tell the story in the ring.
Right. It's great. Like you have two guys that they have a conflict and they settle it in the ring and have a high paced, hard hitting athletic contest. And it's awesome. Like we don't need, somebody cheating on somebody and somebody trying to take somebody's wife or all that other, crazy gimmicks. It's like just straight up in the rings, two guys, you have the belt, I want it, or I think I'm better than you, I'm going to prove it. Just very simple, in-ring, high quality stuff.
Yeah, I mean, did you catch the Daniel Bryan Drew Gulak match last night?
I have not heard great things about it. It's on my list to catch on. I kind of missed out on Elimination Chamber last night. I didn't think it was gonna be that great. I think I would just cherry pick what top matches, and so I've been hearing great things about Bryan and Gulak.
So, but that's the thing. Like, they found a reason to fight. They booked the match. They had a really good match. I mean, we'll see where they go from here, but like, it was fun to watch. It was simple. It's easy storytelling, and it ate up 20 minutes of their far too long pay-per-view. But like, it was the best 20 minutes. It was at the beginning. So, I mean, like, sometimes that's all it comes down to. It's just like create a small reason to have a match because that's what these guys do. They have matches, and then let them pay it off and have someone win and then move on or do it again, whatever. But yeah, if we're gonna recommend anything outside of New Japan, something inside of the WWE bubble, like that match was really fun.
Nice. And, here with Ospreay, with winning the most outstanding wrestler, he had 5 matches rated 5 stars or better and 17 matches rated 4.5 and better. So just showing the quality that Ospreay put out in that year. And I'm sure there's probably even more like 4-star, 4.25 matches in that range also.
Yeah. So what's your take? What do you think Ospreay's going to do now that he moves up to heavyweight? Like, do you think he's still gonna be in this conversation for most outstanding, or do you think he's gonna fall back for a year or two? Like, what's your read on where he's headed?
Yeah, I think he'll still be in the most outstanding category. I mean, we saw, the junior title match against Hiromu. I definitely think as long as he's healthy, he's going to be wanting to have, high profile matchups and, still trying to be the best wrestler in the world. He's coming here to Tampa for a lot of WrestleMania weekend shows. He's still he's the Rev Pro champion, now doing stuff in the UK once again. So I think it's going to be another year where he's going to be kind of all over the place, putting out high quality matchups, and I think he's going to also have another great G1. Because he's not going to be in Best of Super Juniors or any of the junior tournaments, but he's going to be in that the G1 tournament and any other heavyweight tournaments I'm sure they have later this year. And I'm sure he's going to have a lot of big programs. I could see him potentially jumping back in that Never division, especially with Shingo as the champion. I know they had that first round matchup set up with those guys, so I definitely think they're probably going to maybe do another like kind of a Shingo Ospreay rivalry this year, and Ospreay slayed the Dragon Best of Super Junior, so I definitely think now both are heavyweights. It would have been a great story to see what would happen now, both as heavyweights in that Never division. Could Shingo finally overcome Ospreay? Would Ospreay be able to beat him again? So I definitely think this year is going to be great for Ospreay, and just that heavyweight division is really going to benefit from him there.
Yeah, I agree. I think this may be a year where you have to follow Will Ospreay around a little bit. I think he may he's already done really good work outside of New Japan. His match with Zack Sabre Jr. at Rev Pro when he won the belt was awesome. So I think that would be my only concern in the sense of people being exposed to it, is because if people are just following New Japan last year, they saw almost everything he did. I mean, they saw a significant amount of what Will Ospreay did. I think this year, like I said, you might have to follow him around, but he's a guy that can get people to follow you around. So I'm sitting on a Rev Pro subscription now. So he's gonna do some good for the global business, I think. And I think that's awesome.
Yeah, and especially, now with him being full on heavyweight, he's not going to be probably on a lot of those junior tours. Like, he's probably not going to be on the Best of Super Junior Tour unless he's going to be tagging with somebody from Chaos on an undercard. So in a month like that where there's a lot of shows and he's going to be off of, he's probably going to be in a Rev Pro, maybe Ring of Honor or some other promotion, maybe in Australia. Who knows? He's going to be somewhere else getting those reps in and having great matches. So great point there. Yeah, you're going to have to probably keep your eye on him to see where he goes in between those times when there's junior tournaments going on.
Yeah, I agree.
So then up next, we have Tag Team of the Year. At number 10, we have Mark and Jay Briscoe. Number 9, we have the Birds of Prey, Will Ospreay and Robbie Eagles. Number 8, Frankie Kazarian and Scorpio Sky. Number 7, Go Shiozaki and Kachuko Nakajima. Number 6, we have Guerrillas of Destiny, Tama Tonga and Tangaloa. Number 5, we have Suwama Tsuji and Ishikawa. Number 4, we have Proud and Powerful, Santana and Ortiz. Number 3, Red Dragon, Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly. Number 2, the Young Bucks, Matt and Nick Jackson. And then number 1, Pentagon Jr. and Rey Fenix, the Lucha Bros.
There's not a lot of New Japan on that list.
Right. This is something, obviously, if you are a New Japan fan and you've been watching New Japan for a while, the tag team division has never really been a key focus for Gato. We've always kind of gotten this slump where you've had 2 or 3 teams kind of just bouncing the belts back and forth for the most part. Obviously, GOD has been one of those teams that have been kind of the staple of the tag team division over the last few years. And, they got up pretty high there. Number 6, I mean, they were the IWGP Tag Team Champions for a majority of last year. They were also the Ring of Honor champions. They had that pretty good feud with the Briscoes last summer as well. Some pretty good matches for GOD there. And so they're up there in that 6. But, not a lot of New Japan representation. I mean, Birds of Prey got on there, and, they didn't win any titles, but they had a lot of great matches.
Yeah, they had a good run. They were interesting, and I think that they are worthy. I mean, if I'm just looking at this list and then the honorable mentions, I think this list will look a lot different next year. I think that there will be some extra AEW representation next year. Even though, I mean, I guess you could say the Pentagon and Phoenix are definitely, they're most of their work, or most of their most visible work, is in AEW, but they're kind of global too. But yeah, I think that they've built up a couple of tag teams that will break themselves into this. And I think if New Japan doesn't do anything with their tag division, they're gonna be in trouble. To some extent, like it's just gonna be a wasted set of belts, two sets of belts really. So Osprey and Eagles were like a little blessing in disguise for them. They just put on like, half a dozen just phenomenal, really fun matches. And and I think that maybe they've struck gold here with Tanahashi and Ibushi, putting on some dream matches that can build up some challenging teams. So yeah, I mean, it's tough to look at that list and say who in New Japan like would deserve to be on it. I don't particularly agree with GOD being as high as they are, even, to be perfectly honest. But tag team wrestling's kind of a lost art that I think it's going to make a comeback here.
Yeah, and especially, with Golden Aces, Tanahashi and Ibushi, with those guys as the champions right now. And once things kind of, get back in action, like you mentioned, there's a lot of dream matches they can have. And depending on what the plan is, like if those guys hold the belts majority of this year, then I could see a Tanahashi and Ibushi getting on here. Or if you do more stuff with Dangerous Techers, or you create more of these super teams, New Japan does have a shot to kind of shake things up here. If you get Roppongi 3K in there with some good teams, maybe you use ELP and Taiji some more, bring in, import in some tag teams for these juniors to wrestle. I think, Roppongi 3K, they were on the honorable mentions here. They could have a chance on kind of getting up there, and then Ishimori and ELP also.
Yeah, and I think part of that is card placement too. I mean, like you gotta start giving these guys some spots to draw. I mean, whether it's Corkin shows or even just kind of some of the smaller Road to shows, and like put some title defenses out there and give them a chance. Especially when you've got two big draws holding the belts. I mean, you've got Tanahashi and Ibushi holding the belts. So, if they hold on to it, I mean, those are guys that if they defend at Madison Square Garden, I mean, like, even if that's where they lose the belts to someone that they've built up, I mean, like, that could be a really fun match. It could draw an American crowd without a doubt. And you could have a lot of fun with that. And they could put on a 35 minute great tag team match. Like, those guys are smart. So you build up a good team and someone that you want those guys to fight. And maybe that's the opportunity to get those guys on the card in a meaningful place. You put it maybe even in like the semi-main. That wouldn't surprise me, especially because those guys are super over in America.
Right, yeah, that would be awesome. And, those guys don't look like they're going to be in the heavyweight title picture probably around that time. So why not have them in a semi-main event against some kind of super team? That would be great.
Yeah, I mean, just put 4 guys in the ring that can go, and that could be a really good time. I'll probably be there to see it.
Yeah, I'm planning on going there too, as long as coronavirus doesn't extend any longer and shut us down all the way up to then.
Yeah. Well, let's not speak that evil.
Yeah. So up next, we got Best on Interviews. Number 10, Samoa Joe. Number 9, David Starr. Number 8, Daniel Bryan. Number 7, Becky Lynch. Number 6, Nick Aldis. Number 5, Zack Sabre Jr. Number 4, Jon Moxley. Number 3, MJF. Number 2, Cody. And number 1, Chris Jericho. So obviously not a huge New Japan representation here once again, just basically because of the language barrier. And so obviously watching Japanese promos with subtitles, it's kind of hard to really tell if a guy's really kind of good on the promo. I mean, what they're saying, like what it translates sounds good, but once again, I'm sure a lot of the readers, it's kind of hard to really pick it out. So
yeah, and in the world of interviews, like you have to seek out New Japan interviews or promos, however you want to call it. You have to go and find them, and they're usually on YouTube, and they're easy to find once you know where they are, and New Japan does a great job subtitling and getting them up pretty quickly and keeping people up to date. But I mean, Jon Moxley during the G1, his post matches were just awesome. He really built his current character in Japan, I think, and he's brought it over with him into America, obviously. But man, the time him hanging out with Shooter and him just like dragging that little young lion around with him. I mean, like, what was better than that? Like he's got this fine line of like serious but comedy, and like, you know, he's even talked about it in interviews that like that was actually his demise with Vince McMahon, once he knew he had some comedic timing. But I mean, like, that stuff during the G1 I had to seek out every day. He had something to say, and I enjoyed it. And then like, you know, Pat, beyond that, he's been awesome. He's been really good in AEW, but I mean, his New Japan stuff is actually far better than his AEW interview stuff. I think like he's kind of got carte blanche to just go in and say some stuff, and he's funny, but he's also like serious, and he knows when to turn which direction. So him at number 4 is, I think, that's a crime, because he has been my favorite guy to seek out this year.
Yeah, like you mentioned, that whole relationship with Shooter. I mean, he got Omino over with those promos. Like, everybody loved that duo, and you know, Omino goes over for Royal Quest, and he's getting these loud "Let's Go Shooter" chants from the whole arena. So the power of those Moxley promos got the Shooter over there, and I know he's having a good little run there in Rev Pro right now. But yeah, Moxley, you know, since leaving WWE, you know, just showing why he was great in the first place. And yeah, those promos have been great, and like you mentioned, kind of translating over to AEW, and every week he's kind of doing great stuff there as well. Number 5, we have Sabre, a New Japan guy, and Sabre's another guy who has hilarious backstage interviews after the matches. You know, he was kind of on a losing streak last year. He was in a slump, and you know, cursing Boris Johnson, and just kind of going off on his rants and tirades. You know, throwing tables and water bottles after losses was also hilarious.
He's phenomenal too. I mean, like, another one that I'm just gonna seek out every time. And continue to do so. I mean, he's just like, he's one of those guys where you look at him and you're like, where did that come from? Like, how they're just thinking on the fly, and they're speaking, and they're yelling, and they're completely outrageous. They're pro wrestlers. Mm-hmm. They're crazy. Like, they're nut jobs. And these two guys together, which is, a direction I'm hopeful they're still going to go. That's going to be some fun promo stuff.
Yeah.
They were already just after Zack Sabre Jr. attacked Moxley. Like, they both did little blurbs, and they were just hilarious. I mean, like, John Moxley called Zack Sabre Jr. the human fucking udon noodle. And I was like, no, this is gonna work. This is gonna work. This is gonna be real easy for these guys.
Jonathan Moxley.
Jonathan Moxley. Yeah. I mean, come on back, New Japan, and give me that match. Let's go. Give me some promos before it too.
Yeah. And then in the honorable mentions for this, we had Jay White and Will Ospreay as New Japan guys. And Jay White, I think he's really great when it comes to interviews and promos. You know, during the G1 in Dallas, we had a chance to be there, Young Boy and I, in that presser. And when Jay White came in there, he just kind of owned the room, and he's very confident in that Switchblade character, and he totally owns his persona, and he truly believes in every single thing he says. And when he's talking, you get that vibe from him. So I think it's one of those things where people are probably not a big fan of his work, and once again, not really seeking out the New Japan promos, but I think Jay White on the mic is excellent.
Yeah, Jay White, he was really entertaining leading up to Wrestle Kingdom in all of those press conferences. He is really good at the press conference kind of dynamic. Ospreay too. I think that's where he shined the most, though Ospreay did some really good post-match show ending promos too. I think my favorite Ospreay promo or speech was after he faced Amazing Red at
Super J-Cup.
Yeah, Super J-Cup.
That was great.
Man, that speech was heartfelt and real. And like, I think Ospreay, I think he, on the other side of things, like, same deal. Like, he believes everything he says, and he says everything he believes. And most of that is kind-hearted, and he kind of tries to play the role of the kind of dopey baby face, but I think he's super genuine. So, but I think that's part of the trick is like turn yourself up. So if Ospreay is just like a sweet and genuine guy, that's what you do as in a promo. If Jay White's kind of a dastardly heel, no, it works too. So I think those are guys that could rise up this list. If we see some guys, I guess people, because you got Becky Lynch on there. If you see some people fall off, I mean, depends how much David Starr talks this year. I don't know. He keeps losing his outlets, but I think you could see Jay White and Ospreay get onto that top 10. That wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, Ospreay already with that, that another great speech after the Rev Pro title match, winning the title from Zack Sabre. That was another kind of great, heartfelt, genuine speech there. Especially if he's going to be doing some more Rev Pro stuff or maybe even some more Ring of Honor stuff, he will have the opportunity to kind of cut those English promos and out there for people to see. So I definitely think Ospreay does have a great chance ranking up next year.
Yeah, I agree.
So next up, promotion of the year. So at number 10, we have All Japan Pro Wrestling. Number 9, OTT. Number 8, Triple A. Number 7, DDT. Number 6, Stardom. Or tied for 6, we have Stardom and Dragon Gate. At 5, we have the UFC. Number 4, the NWA. Number 3, WWE. Number 2, All Elite Wrestling. And then number 1, New Japan Pro Wrestling.
In a landslide.
744 first place votes. Yeah.
I mean, that's significant. And no surprise there. I also think the Wrestling Observer newsletter readers are New Japan fans, obviously. I think that's typically apparent in these awards. It's typically apparent in Dave's coverage. But this is, I mean, when you've got a company like All Elite Wrestling putting on really great shows through most of the year, probably with better visibility to most of those readers, this is still a pretty big win for New Japan. So they've still got this audience for sure.
Yeah. They've won this award 15 times overall now. And obviously last year they had their, best attendance in nearly 20 years. And some of the tournaments, I mean, Best Super Juniors, G1, Super G Cup, just had a lot of their best tournaments last year.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to the tournaments, I mean, Best of Super Juniors is the best tournament I've ever seen, without a doubt. G1 right next to it too. I mean, like if I wasn't such a fan of junior heavyweight wrestling, the G1 would have been my favorite tournament of the year. So, my preference is kind of the New Japan style of junior heavyweight. So Best of Super Juniors was, man, that. I was getting up at 4 a.m. every day for those tournament shows. I couldn't get enough of it, and I wanted to see it as it happened. And I would wake up and think like, I'm just gonna roll over, and then I'm like, nah, I'm gonna turn it on. And that was such a great tournament, and like just ending it on the pretty much consensus match of the year of Ospreay and Shingo. I mean, that was incredible, and like the G1 just had the highest quality matches of any block tournament I've ever seen too. So
yeah, that tournament was just incredible. Shingo, Ishii, Okada, Will. Literally, there were so many great matchups. The intrigue of John Moxley being in there and Kenta, and just all the great stuff, all the great matchups, man, that I can just reminisce and think about how great that tournament was. Yeah, I mean, and the G1 had fewer peaks and valleys than Best of Super Juniors, but I think the Best of Super Juniors had higher highs. But I mean, either way, they both built towards a great year for New Japan, a great drawing year, the ability for them to run bigger venues this year for some of their key shows. So, and honestly, last year, like a huge moment for New Japan was them selling out the Garden in America and doing that big show. And I think that brought them, I mean, that almost created a shoe-in type situation for promotion of the year, regardless of what All Elite Wrestling did, because it was one of those things that was really important for American pro wrestling business. Is someone else sold out the Garden, put on a hell of a show, and said everyone else is here to play, and WWE is not the only game in town. So that was a big moment, and I hope they have another big moment this summer. Yeah, that'll be great. And also, they had those the Northeast tour they did, the Fighting Spirit Unleashed tour, and like Hammerstein and New York, Boston, all that did that Northeast area. That tour went off pretty well, and selling out those famous like indie buildings with those cards was another kind of big moment there too. So yeah, New Japan, they've made a lot of moves in the U.S. and just over between business, Japan and U.S. match quality, like they just had an excellent year. And there's a reason why this was the 8th year in a row that they won the award. So it's New Japan just on a roll.
Yeah, they're going to be tough to take down here. I mean, even with AEW doing what they're doing, like the magnifying glass is so heavy on what AEW does that anything that they do that's not great is going to get talked about. And I think that actually turns people off from the promotion. Whereas anything that New Japan does that's not good is just, oh, silly Japanese people.
Yeah.
So I think that New Japan has this cachet with wrestling fans in general that I think that they get a little bit of a pass on some of the more egregious booking or tactics that they use.
Yeah, and AEW will have a little bit of an advantage just having weekly television in the United States. Obviously, it's a little bit more easy to watch and follow, so I think that might play a little bit in where AEW, if they could ultimately surpass New Japan next year. But we'll see. It really comes down to those match qualities. If we can have another excellent Best of Super Juniors in G1 and we sell out the Garden again, then I think it's another lock for New Japan for me.
Yeah, I think it'll get closer, but I think New Japan's still got, assuming they come back sometime soon here, I think they've got another year on lock before they really need to be watching behind them.
Yeah. But speaking of weekly TV, so next category was the best weekly TV show. Number 10, we had the AEW Road to. Number 9, Impact Wrestling. Number 8, AEW Dark. Number 7, Beyond Uncharted Territory. Number 6, MLW Fusion. Number 5, Being the Elite. Number 4, New Japan on Access. Number 3, NWA Power. Number 2, NXT. And then number 1, AEW Dynamite. So obviously with New Japan, Access was the only kind of real thing in contention, and now that TV deal is gone. So obviously they're not going to be ranking for that. And I know there's been rumblings on them looking at a new potential TV deal there.
Yeah, I've heard that too, and I think it might be a focus of theirs, considering their move into primetime in Japan. It might be easier to kind of share the production to those shows, but and put something out that's current and relevant in America. But I've never been one to watch New Japan on television just because I always want to watch the whole show. So I never watch the Access show. I don't get Access either, but I understand that that's it's obviously a plus and if you want to be a growing market, but I think right now there's so much pro wrestling on regular TV that I don't know that you can wedge yourself in and even find your audience right now. So I don't know that TV, and we talked about this on the show in the past, the last time or one of the last times I was on, like, yeah, I don't know that TV is the way to get to build your audience right now, just because it's so overloaded. I mean, hardly anyone's watching Impact, and Impact's always been a player in this game, and they don't even register on the Nielsen ratings right now. So you've got to hunt and peck for those numbers. So I think New Japan could benefit from doing more current stuff on YouTube when they get some buzz on some matches and put the English broadcast up, and so people don't have to find it on the high seas. But I think right now it may be time to lay low from that platform and let AEW and the rest of these guys kind of battle it out and create some space when they end up either falling off or building themselves up to be like Raw, where you're just habit viewers, and that does actually create space for other promotions to build TV. So,
and I'm glad you brought up YouTube, because if you look at this list, there are a lot of YouTube-based shows that are on here. You got AEW Road to, AEW Dark, MLW Fusion, Being the Elite, NWA Power, who came in number 3. Those are all shows on YouTube, and definitely agree with you. I think New Japan, they have kind of the content and the library and the talent and resources to do some more stuff on YouTube with recaps and shows. I know they've done stuff like the recount and some other like top 10 countdowns and stuff like that, and they throw out the post-match interviews, but I think they could package something together weekly that could compete with some of these YouTube shows that made the list here.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree, and I just think that the only thing they're missing is like a consistency. Because they could, if they built out a show that was going to be on YouTube weekly, and it could maybe have, you know, whatever key match of the week, something current, and then one of those recount type pieces or something Kevin Kelly or Chris Charlton or any of those guys do, they could pull something together that that could be a nice weekly 40-minute to an hour update show, and you get one match, and it kind of plants the seed for people who want more of this style. I think that could be, I mean, it's an investment, but I think it could grow New Japan World subscribers for sure, especially because it seems like they're really committed to doing a lot of English content this year. I mean, all these shows in March were supposed to be English content, and I know they're tournament shows, but I mean, everything as they were happening live with English commentary, I mean, that's quite the investment. So they're ready to do it, I think, and I think it would be nice if they had something online beyond the post-match promos and like the miscellaneous recount type stuff. That they do a great job with that stuff too. I mean, they pulled together some really nice, you know, kind of catch-up stories. So yeah, we'll see. I know that there's a lot of conversation within New Japan about what to do with American broadcast or American kind of update style stuff, but I haven't heard much more past the fact that they are having a lot of conversation about it.
Yeah, same here. And then just, you know, with YouTube, just the power that platform can have. And you look at Being the Elite, I mean, that was the driving source for All In. Like there was no TV leading up into All In. It was pretty much all Being the Elite that sold those 10,000 tickets. And NWA Power, they've had like 3 or 4 pay-per-views now that have all kind of sold out and done well on like Fight TV. So there is some power in YouTube. I know obviously like having a big time cable deal would still be great, but YouTube is a very valuable tool. And if you're on there consistently and putting out great content, we've seen with stuff like Being the Elite and NWA Power that you can get your brand over and you can sell tickets based off YouTube.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's something definitely worth exploring. I don't know what the Japanese culture around it is. Like, I don't know what their thought process around kind of giving something away. I mean, if you look at New Japan World, like they don't even do free trial, right? So I think that I'd be curious to hear what their general thoughts on doing stuff like that is. I mean, Bushiroad did just do the free show with Stardom though, so maybe that was a research piece. That wouldn't surprise me to see kind of what it was looking like.
Yeah. So up next, we have a pro wrestling match of the year. So number 10, we have Jon Moxley versus Tomohiro Ishii, Kota Ibushi versus Jay White, Walter versus Tyler Bate. Number 7, Young Bucks versus Pentagon Jr. and Phoenix. Number 6, Shingo Takagi versus Tomohiro Ishii. Number 5, John Gargano versus Adam Cole from Brooklyn. Number 4, Kazuchika Okada versus Will Ospreay. Number 3, Cody versus Dustin Rhodes. Number 2, Hiroshi Tanahashi versus Kenny Omega from Wrestle Kingdom 13. And then number 1, Will Ospreay versus Shingo Takagi from that Best of the Super Junior final.
I mean, that was my match of the year. I don't know about you.
Yeah, that was my match of the year also. That also won our Keeping It Strong Style match of the year. I know it won a lot of match of the years across the board from different wrestling publications. And, I mean, we've praised this match over and over again. It's just, that match is just amazing. Like, I've watched that match multiple times, and it's just some great stuff.
Yep. I can't say much more about it. I mean, except that that was an incredible match. It had great stakes. I was ready for it. It had, the buildup was great. The 2 blocks, you know, you kind of knew who was going to win both blocks, but they had fought for it. It was the end of a tournament. I mean, everything kind of came together for that match. So, and I'm not like a matches guy. Like I'm not like a single match, like watch it and watch it in a vacuum kind of guy. So like I need everything to kind of come together for me to really have a match of the year. And that match, man, I didn't know who was going to win. And I thought that was cool. Like it's just like, I was biting on near falls, and I was standing and pacing, as the Voices of Wrestling guys like to say.
Yeah.
Like that's the key. If you start standing up and pacing around the room because you don't know what's going on, you're like stressing out. That's the key of a match of the year contender right there.
Yeah, and I for sure thought that Shingo was going to win just based off how he tore through his block, how they've been building him up in that even before the tournament. I was like, oh well, yeah, Shingo Will's going to be a great match, but Shingo's going to win and, move on. But no, man, that was a huge – I popped big. That combo, the Hidden Blade and the Stormbreaker and the Super Oz Cutter. I was just like, oh, my gosh, like he did it.
He did it.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, geez. What brilliant booking, though. I mean, like, you build him forever. From the moment he steps into the promotion, you build Shingo Takagi. And then you give Will Ospreay the big win at the Best of Super Juniors. And then Shingo says, F it, I'm out. I'm going heavyweight immediately. Like no more of this junior stuff. He's gone.
Yeah.
And he's been pretty unstoppable since then. I mean, like he's struggled a little bit, but nothing significant. He's still my guy too. So yeah, what a great match. I don't know, man. I could write thousands of words about that match and how awesome it was. And I would probably just use the word awesome a million times.
Yeah, it's awesome over and over again. And New Japan here had 6 of the 10 top matches. So just once again, just showing what we've been talking about, that quality of New Japan, just that high pace, strong style, athleticism, just 2 guys going in there and just having great matchups there. And this list kind of mirrored, for the most part, my overall top 10 as well. I think the only 2 things that weren't on my personal list were Cody and Dustin, and Johnny and Adam Cole were the only 2 matches that weren't on my overall top 10.
No, you weren't into Cody and Dustin, huh?
Like I thought it was a very good match, but I don't think I went 5. I think I might have went like 4.5 on it. I can't remember now, but I mean, I thought it was a great match, but for me, it just wasn't. I don't know.
Yeah, so like I did a little blurb for my Voices of Wrestling top 10 on that match, and I was like, why did I love this match so much? Like it was fine, right? I mean, we all know like Cody and Dustin Rhodes didn't put on a Tanahashi and Omega level classic, right? So like, why are they in that same conversation? That is the outlier match on this list when it really comes down to it. It was not a work rate classic, but that match felt so important to American wrestling. Mm-hmm. Like that's what it was for me, is that match felt really important for kind of relevant American wrestling. And it wasn't just like 2 guys coming over from Japan and putting on a great match in America. Like these were American wrestlers working in American style. So I think that's, like I said, like I'm not a watch it in a vacuum and throw some stars on it kind of guy. Like that's not how I watch. That's not how my brain works with wrestling. Now I can like respect a great match when I see it in a vacuum, but the weight of that match and its establishing factor for AEW is kind of what really built it up for me, where I finished watching that match and I was like, we might have something here. Yeah. Like I might have something to watch in on US television soon. And that was exciting for me, but
yeah, I mean, it was a great story, great build. There were some great promos kind of building up to that match. So yeah, I mean, it had a great story, great build, and just a lot of drama in the match there. You didn't know kind of the angle they were going to do, and obviously Dustin gushing the Crimson Mask. So yeah, I mean, it was a great match. But I think my other 2 matches here are on the honorable mentions. That Will Ospreay versus Dragon Lee match from Dominion, and Jordan Devlin versus David Starr from the October 26th show.
See, that was a match I watched in a vacuum that I probably had. It was probably my number 11. That one would have been on my. It was very close to my top 10. I knew nothing about that match going into that particular one in October, and they did a great job with the promo package that they put up with that match, and I was I was standing and pacing for that one too. That was a really good match, and I think looking back on it, that is pretty telling for the direction of David Starr and Devlin going forward even.
Yeah, dude, OTT's just been excellent with their promo packages, their hype videos, and David Starr's an awesome promo guy. And so, yeah, just watching those promo videos, and I'd kind of been following the rivalry a little bit, just really sucked me in there. Just the atmosphere and the crowd and that whole double turn they were able to do there, getting the crowd to kind of turn on Devlin there at the end, I thought was awesome storytelling.
Yeah, that was one of the hottest crowds I've ever seen watching a wrestling match too, and I think that makes a difference. And I think we'll probably talk a little bit about crowd or no crowd later in the show here.
Yeah. All right, so now we're moving on to the Category B awards. I'm going to kind of jump around to the more New Japan relevant ones. So jumping down to the Japanese MVP. So at number 7, we had Hiroshi Tanahashi. Number 6, Kenosuke Takeshita. Number 5, Tetsuya Naito. Number 4, Kota Ibushi. Number 3, Kento Miyahara. Number 2, Will Ospreay. And number 1, overwhelmingly, Kazuchika Okada.
Yeah, I mean, he's the guy. There's no way around that, really. I mean, you've got a pretty standard list of what you would expect here, I think. Miyahara, really important for AJPW last year. Just in the sense of getting them in the conversation of kind of the wrestling fan watching some of their stuff. So, but otherwise, I don't think there's anything on here. I mean, Tanahashi's still holding strong, right? So he's still the ace, right?
Yeah.
So they've got a lot to work with in New Japan still. So no surprise here. I guess a little surprised to see Ospreay at number 2. In an MVP vote, so like valuable, is he really drawing? Does he have the drawing power in Japan? Like, I think so. I think he's getting there,
right? And he learned language, move there, and I think also the key thing that helped him there was just his match quality last year.
Oh yeah, I mean, like just the fact that he had so much output and so much output in singles matches. I think that creates a lot of value. You can put him, pretty high up the card, and he's going to put out a heck of a singles match with pretty much anyone. He could probably do it with a blow up doll.
Yeah. I think next year we'll definitely see Naito probably a little bit higher after winning the double gold dash, selling out Osaka Joe Hall there for that match with Kenta. So I think he'll probably be closer to the top, maybe even fighting for number 1, depending on the year Okada has this year and what Ospreay does this year also. So,
yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see Hiromu jump up here too.
Oh yeah.
Assuming he has a good run here and some really awesome defenses and probably a good run in Best of Super Juniors. I would bet we see Hiromu land on this list, and depending on what happens with All Japan, maybe Kento gets probably fewer votes. Again, depending on what happens with their business.
Right, if they turn into NXT Japan.
I guess they could work one way or the other. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about it.
So up next, we had the non-heavyweight MVP. So at number 8, we had El Phantasmo. Number 7, Johnny Gargano. Number 6, David Starr. Number 5, El Hijo del Vikingo. Number 4, Rey Fenix. Number 3, Shingo Takagi. Number 2, Dragon Lee. And number 1, overwhelmingly number 1, Will Ospreay.
Now, the story with the category Bs is that it's just one vote, right? Like one, it's not like a first through third like the category A's. Is that correct?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's why you don't have I think that's why these lists are kind of random amounts. Some of them are 10, some of them are 7. Yeah, I mean, Will Ospreay, he won't win this next year, but he certainly earned it last year. And I would love to see the rest of this list kind of stay the way it is and just drop Ospreay off, because I'm a huge Rio Lee fan, and I think he's primed to have a really good year in really both promotions, Ring of Honor and New Japan, that he's going to be working primarily. So And then, Shingo's going to be right there too, depending on how much he works non-heavyweight. So this is going to be an interesting kind of evolving category, I think, to keep an eye on this year. Like, who's really going to pop out of the juniors? Obviously, you're going to have Hiromu too. So it's probably going to come down to Hiromu or Ryu Lee.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking also. Yeah, with Ospreay and Shingo gone, kind of opens up the door there for some of these guys to kind of move up. Ryu Lee, he's ROH TV champion right now, part of that new faction with his brother Roosh and Kenny King, and he's been doing great stuff in Ring of Honor. And then Best of Super Juniors is right around the corner, so he's going to probably have another great tournament. So, yeah, between both promotions, I'm not sure how much he's doing in Mexico right now, but I think he can definitely challenge for that top spot. Obviously, Hiromu being back full-time is going to be in that top spot. And then I think depending on what happens in Best of Super Junior, I think Robbie Eagles is a guy that we could potentially see break through on this list.
Oh, man, I'd love that. The more times I can see the turbo backpack, the better.
Yes. I think a guy like Taiji Ishimori, he kind of had an off year last year. I think if he kind of gets back in the groove, I think he's a guy that could, potentially crack this list also.
Oh yeah, he's definitely got the talent, the pedigree. It's just a matter of if he gets the opportunity to put on great matches instead of kind of being tied into the Bullet Club storylines.
Yeah. So the next awards here, we have the best box office draw. So at number 10, we had L.A. Park. Number 9, Ronda Rousey. Number 8, Becky Lynch. Number 7, Cody. Number 6, Kenny Omega. Number 5, Nate Diaz. Number 4, Kazuchika Okada. Number 3, John Jones. Number 2, Brock Lesnar. And then number 1, Le Champion, Chris Jericho.
So I think this list is interesting because you've got New Japan Promotion of the Year, one of their best drawing years in the last 20 years, right? Like Dave said earlier throughout this awards kind of write-up. And you've only got one really core New Japan guy on this best box office draw, right? So like, yeah, Okada's the guy that's going to sell some tickets, but the rest of that card is also selling some tickets, right? Because Okada's output wasn't that high last year. He didn't have that. I mean, he wrestled a lot. He appeared on a lot of cards, but he wasn't necessarily featured on all of those cards.
Right.
So this is, and Chris Jericho only wrestled twice in New Japan last year. So now they were big shows. It was Wrestle Kingdom and Dominion, but so you can't say he's not selling some tickets for them. But I mean, New Japan they have such a deep roster that they can pull together one of their best business years really of all time, and definitely the best in the modern era, and have only got one guy really on the best box office list. And I think this list is pretty true to who's selling tickets.
Right. And then also I think the thing with New Japan, along with obviously building up guys throughout the years like Tanahashi and Okada, and you have your Naitos and your Ibushis, I just think that they've done a great job of just building up the brand. And so I think, New Japan Pro Wrestling is a recognizable brand that, it's going to deliver. So even if Okada might not be in the main event, but, if Shingo and Ishii's in the main event, or Hiromu and Ryu Lee or some other, big match in the main event, they're going to deliver. So they don't really necessarily need to focus in on that one guy that's going to be the main draw. But obviously they're still building up stars, and Okada is definitely one of their top guys, and he's still so young, and he's probably going to be on this list for a long time.
I mean, he's younger than me, so good on him. Nice job, little Kaz. I mean, I think the best thing I can say about New Japan is, like, I buy New Japan t-shirts, right? Like, I buy Lionheart t-shirts and hats, and like, that's how I want to represent my enjoyment of New Japan. I'm not necessarily buying much products that has like a wrestler from New Japan on it.
Right.
Right. So like and part of that is like, it's that like, I trust that New Japan as a brand, they're not going to turn on me. Right. And they're not going to fall off a cliff. Like they've proven out that they've got this track record. So like, I'm spending my money on things with that lion mark on them more than I'm spending my money on things with even my favorite wrestler, Kota Ibushi, on it. So it in itself is a box office draw. Now, they haven't necessarily proven that with the New Beginning tour in America, things like that. But I think when you're going to get true New Japan show, and I think that's what we're looking at for Madison Square Garden, and I think that's what we looked at. I mean, we got much closer to that with that Fighting Spirit Unleashed tour last year. Those were pretty good shows, and they sold appropriately. So, Okada, you throw him on a show, you're going to sell a couple extra 100 tickets. You put Chris Jericho on a show in America, and you're selling 4,000 though. So reasonable that he's at the top of this list for sure.
Yeah, I think Naito might be a potential candidate for this next year, just based off of 2 nights of Wrestle Kingdom, the New Beginning Osaka, Osaka Joe Hall, and just depending on how the rest of his title reign goes, he could probably crack this list. Maybe knock off LA Park there at the bottom. Ronda Rousey, she hasn't done much this year. I don't know if she's coming back or not. So yeah, Naito could probably crack this list here.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me. And I think that not that Dave's necessarily going to have to eat crow in on this side of things, but he keeps talking about how Naito's broken and he can't hang anymore. But I haven't seen that to be true so far. He's evolved a little bit, but I mean, I think everyone does. So yeah. I think that Naito's going to prove out that he'll probably land himself top 5 unless some of these MMA guys put on some really big fights.
Yeah. So next up, feud of the year. So number 10, we have Cody versus MJF. Number 9, Kazuchika Okada versus Sonata. Number 8, Becky Lynch versus Ronda Rousey versus Charlotte Flair. Number 7, Kobe Covington versus Kamaru Usman. Number 6, David Starr versus Jordan Devlin. Number 5, Yushin Thunder Liger versus Minoru Suzuki. Number 4, Daniel Bryan versus Kofi Kingston. Number 3, the Young Bucks versus the Lucha Bros. Number 2, Chris Jericho versus Cody. And then number 1, Adam Cole versus Johnny Gargano.
The only one I was surprised not to see here, crack the top 10, I see it in the honorable mentions, is Ibushi and Naito.
Yeah.
They had such a good series in ring, and it was thoughtful and compelling. And I know Dave hated it because it was dangerous.
Yeah, they were dropping each other on their heads.
It was.
Yeah.
Like, let's call a spade there. I mean, some of that, it was, I don't know. It was scary. Some of that stuff was scary. But I was surprised not to see the voters kind of jump on that one, because those are 2 guys that I think, on the New Japan side of things, they had a great series. Was it better than the Okada Sonata series? That probably depends how you feel about Sonata, because he is divisive in the way that people feel about him. So I would have put it ahead of Okada Sonata. I think the Liger Suzuki build was great. I think the payoff was less than the build.
Yeah.
But I understand why it is on this list. I think that it gets the Liger bump. And the Suzuki bump, for that matter. And people love Minoru Suzuki. So, I mean, you put those 2 guys in a match together and people are going to want to see it.
Yeah, and they just did so much, like you mentioned, kind of on the front end there with that feud. Just the attacks, post-match, pre-match, in the middle of matches, promos. And so just kind of building up to that moment, you were just dying to finally see these guys kind of get in there and, beat the crap out of each other. Obviously, it was a little bit kind of a different style match, but overall, I mean, the whole rivalry was still pretty great.
Yeah, I would go back and do it again.
Yeah. So then moving on to
it's a good time.
Yeah, most improved, we had number 10, Will Ospreay. Number 9, Cody. Number 8, Darby Allin. Number 7, MJF. Number 6, Jay White. Number 5, Tai Chi. Number 4, Rhea Ripley. Number 3, Jungle Boy. Number 2, Jon Moxley. And number 1, Lance Archer. So
my man.
Yeah, I see a lot of AEW fans trying to take credit for Lance Archer on this award, but come on, guys. Archer was in New Japan all 2019. The most improvement came from his performance in the starting the New Japan Cup, the match with Ospreay, and then rolling into the G1, and then just being in singles matches after that, getting the U.S. title. Obviously, the match with Mox at Wrestle Kingdom, like he just had, and the promos too. Just a lot of great matches. Really stepped his game up. People just saw him in that tag team kind of role, Killer Elite Squad role, but once Davey Boy left, really kind of broke through there.
Yeah, I mean, what a renaissance year for Lance Archer. I mean, there's no denying it. This is a deserved award. any other year, Jon Moxley's probably sitting at the top of this, right?
Yeah.
But man, Lance Archer, the New Japan Cup match with Ospreay was awesome. But I mean, like, from the G1, like he became must watch during the G1. Like, what's this dude gonna do, and how are these guys gonna go at it? And he's such a different character and a different style and a different size for New Japan. I think he's gonna be missed. I think he fit in really well with Suzuki-gun. He was a great fit for New Japan, and he was one of those guys that he could wrestle, a couple of different styles, but he would also bring out a different style from a lot of the guys he went after. So I'm happy for him. I'm happy for him to have found probably a situation that's going to treat his body a little bit better in America. I'm excited to see what he does in AEW. I'm excited to see how they use him, and I hope they do him right, because that could be a moment for me if they do my man dirty.
Yeah. I'm sad to see him go, but also, like you, I'm looking forward to seeing kind of how he fits into AEW and what they end up doing with him. I mean, he's very talented. He really busted his ass last year. I think he definitely deserves kind of a top spot, so I'm really hoping they have some good stuff in store for him. Number 5 here, we had Taichi. Taichi had a really great 2019, especially, look back at matches with guys like Ishii and Naito. Like, he just had the Ospreay match also. There's a lot of matches where Taichi really stepped up here and kind of reduced the shenanigans and kind of, turn up the strong style. And so I definitely think he deserved being in that top 5 there.
Yeah, the only thing Taichi's still doing that's really shenanigans every match is the pants thing, and it's just over. I mean, like,
yeah,
there's no way around it. Like, he's got to keep doing that, but it's going to turn him into a white meat babyface if he keeps doing it at the right time. So he's got to find that moment where it's kind of snarky to do it. But yeah, Taichi, great match quality this year. Didn't get into a lot of huge storylines either. So I'd be interested to see what he could do if he got a really good program for one of the belts again, or even a good run in something like the New Japan Cup.
Yeah.
So, and I see Jay White here at number 6. I don't know that I guess I was in on Jay White at the beginning of this year. So I don't know that I recognize him as super improved, because I've always thought he was really good at what he does. So, but I guess when it comes down to it, he was put in the position to get some eyes on him too.
Yeah, much like you, I've always kind of been in the Jay White camp, and I think he's a great wrestler. I mean, yeah, sometimes his matches does kind of get ruined by kind of maybe some overbooking and some Bullet Club shenanigans, but the beginning of the year, he had that big win over Okada in 15 minutes, and then obviously kind of building up to he had the Ospreay match at the anniversary show, and then building up to Madison Square Garden, where he dropped the belt to Okada. And he definitely had a better G1 this year than the 2018 G1. So, yeah, like you mentioned, I just think he was in some better positions to kind of get some more eyes, and really delivered when he was in those positions.
Yeah, and then I see Will Ospreay here at number 10, which is like it's kind of interesting because he just went from great to greater, I guess.
Right, yeah.
I mean, like he was really good before 2019, and elevated. It's real. So I mean, he just like kept going. Yeah. So like I was surprised to see him on the list, but then I was like, nah, I guess he did get better. He got even better.
Yeah, I just took it to a whole nother level.
Right.
All right, so then now we're on to most charismatic. So at number 10, we had Kento Miyahara. Number 9, Matt Riddle. Number 8, Orange Cassidy. Number 7, Becky Lynch. Number 6, Jon Moxley. Number 5, MJF. Number 4, Hiroshi Tanahashi. Number 3, Tetsuya Naito. Number 2, Cody. And then number 1, Chris Jericho, taking home another award here.
Yeah, this all makes sense to me. Naito's got his style of charisma, right? But it is certainly charismatic. Tanahashi, he exudes ace energy, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's the guy. And then going down to Moxley, obviously kind of a combination of his work in New Japan and his work in AEW. I mean, these are the guys that you want to put in front of the camera. They've got a lot of charisma. So
Are you surprised?
Nothing too surprising here. What's up?
Are you surprised about what about Okada? Do you think kind of surprising that he's not on this list or even honorable mention?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I didn't think of him as someone that was missing. I don't know. Yeah, I guess. Interesting that he's not even an honorable mention, meaning probably he didn't get any votes, right? I mean,
that's what I would think. Yeah.
I mean, I guess
maybe he got like one vote, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's that egregious to leave him off. I mean, when I look at Okada or Velveteen Dream, I think, okay, Okada's got more charisma than that guy. But yeah, I mean, this is a weird list. I mean, you got Orange Cassidy winning, or coming in 8th, but with a whole, again, a different kind of charisma.
Right, yeah.
So, yeah. I don't know. Tough to say. Are you surprised by that?
A little bit. Like, I know a lot of people kind of see him as like a very kind of stoic kind of figure and really doesn't really fire up until he's in the match, especially that, those closing stretches. But I don't know. I feel like when he's doing those closing promos and some of the press conference interview stuff, I feel like he exudes that charisma, and obviously he's the face of the companies and commercials and other kind of public facing stuff for them. So I don't know. Yeah, kind of surprised there a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now that you mention it, I don't know. It didn't pop out at me.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where just because it's Okada, like you don't want to give him too much, and so trying to get some shine at some other people.
Yeah, like if I was voting on this, I would look at it and be like, all right, I'm going to give it to literally everybody else because this is the one that you can get away with leaving him off the list.
Yeah. Next up, we have the Bryan Danielson Award, the Best Technical Wrestler. So at number 8, we have Johnny Gargano. Number 7, Timothy Thatcher. Number 6, Minoru Suzuki. Number 5, Jonathan Gresham. Number 4, Sonata. Number 3, Will Ospreay. Number 2, Daniel Bryan. And number 1, Zack Sabre Jr.
I mean, in a landslide again, 895 to Daniel Bryan's 97. I mean, this is Zack Sabre Jr.'s award to win for the next decade if he wants it.
Yeah, he's been winning this award since 2014.
Right, and before that, it was a heck of a stretch for Bryan Danielson.
Yeah, Bryan Danielson
all the way back to 2006.
Yeah, actually 2005.
Yeah. 5, yeah.
Yeah, 5 all the way up until 5 to 13 was the kind of the Bryan Danielson / Daniel Bryan run there.
Yeah. So, I mean, and I would love to see more guys. I mean, Gresham's great. I would love to see him get a run in Best of Super Juniors, maybe with, some higher card placement. Because I think he's going to have a hand in Ring of Honor success going forward. So, I would like to see him kind of elevate himself into this conversation here too. I think Ospreay, it depends on what he ends up doing with his heavyweight style. I think that we may see a different style from him going forward too. But I mean, he has those great matches with Zack Sabre Jr. It's gonna be tough to take him off of this list this year.
Right. Yeah. If you look at those 2 Sabre matches, like you see a whole another side of Will Ospreay. So if he's wrestling Sabre, even like his match with Sonata in the G1 was kind of a very technical match. So if he's wrestling guys like Sonata and Sabre, I think he will still find a place on this list.
Yeah, especially until he's away from Zack Sabre Jr. completely. Sonata, I don't know. Sonata again, he's one of those. He's kind of a chameleon, so he'll have some good technical matches. But he did have a big program with Zack Sabre Jr. last year, so I think that boosted him up at least a little bit from this list.
Yeah. And Suzuki there, I know Suzuki is very great at technical wrestling, but I still kind of view him more as a brawler. I don't think he really uses the technical side that much, especially like at this stage in his career. So kind of interesting that he's, in number 6 there.
Hard to leave Minoru Suzuki off of any list that you think he might find out about.
True that. So next up, we got the Bruiser Brody Memorial Award for the Best Brawler. So number 8, we have Nick Gage. Number 7, Chris Jericho. Number 6, Blue Demon Jr. Number 5, Walter. Number 4, Minoru Suzuki. Number 3, Shingo Takagi. Number 2, Jon Moxley. And number 1, Tomohiro Ishii.
How do you feel about this list?
So yeah, it's very interesting. I think there's a lot of questioning on defining like what is a quote unquote brawler. I'm looking at a guy like Nick Gage. I know he's like a deathmatch wrestler. I've seen a little bit of his stuff, but I feel like it's just more of like a hardcore style maybe than quote unquote brawler. Walter, it's another guy where I don't really classify Walter as a brawler. Obviously, most of his matches is him just chopping the crap out of people. But if I'm thinking brawlers, Walter it's not a guy that kind of comes to mind. But I think the top 4 is a pretty good spot there with Ishii, Mox, Shingo, and Suzuki. Those are definitely 4 guys when I think about brawlers. Those are the guys I kind of think of right there.
Yeah, I agree, especially the top 3. Suzuki, again, he did kind of waver out of the brawler category, I think, for his work with Liger a little bit. But yeah, I just would have liked to see Moxley take this one, because I just think his matches, his brawls, and part of that's probably a little bit of 2020 bias, because he's now done all that work with Minoru Suzuki that I just thought was so fantastic. So I think Moxley just had a heck of a year, like redefining the brawler style for himself. So, but it's going to be tough to pry this award away from Tomohiro Ishii.
Yeah, as long as Ishii can still go and just have those, those never strong style matches against guys like Shingo and Goto and pretty much anybody you put in the ring with Ishii, and it's going to be a brawl and it's going to be a great matchup there. So I think, Ishii is definitely always going to be a contender for this top spot here. So up next, we got the best flying wrestler. Number 8, we have Jacob Fatu. Number 7, Tetsuya Endo. Number 6, Shun Skywalker. Number 5, Ricochet. Number 4, El Hijo del Vikingo. Number 3, Dragon Lee. Number 2, Rey Fenix. And number 1, no surprise here, Will Ospreay.
Will Ospreay and Rey Fenix, 2 guys I'm going to watch pretty much anything they do. Dragon Lee too.
Yeah, pretty much this whole list for the most part. Like Dragon Lee, I'm in on Vikingo. Anytime I can see him on Impact or AAA, I'm in on. Ricochet, not so.
What a sad fall from grace Ricochet's had.
Yeah. And then I haven't really seen much of Skywalker or Endo. I have seen a lot of Jacob Fatu in MLW, and for his size, the way that guy can kind of fly around the ring and hitting that the BME, Chris Daniels style, like for a guy his size is awesome. And I think with the momentum that MLW, they're kind of sneakily kind of progressing and getting a lot of buzz behind them. And I think him being, I think he's still the MLW champion, just being in those main events, like he's a guy that could probably end up staying on this list for a while. Yeah,
and I'm pretty sure he's pretty young, so he's gonna go for a while. And with anyone in MLW, you got to be curious if that's where they're gonna stay. But I know that Court Bauer is trying to build his promotion around Jacob Fatu. So, but yeah, it's a great list. I think Ricochet got in it on reputation. I don't know that he had a great 2019. I guess he started the year in NXT. He had some good stuff there, but sad fall from grace there. But yeah, top 3: Ospreay, Rey Fenix, Dragon Lee. Give me any combination of those guys any day.
Yeah, I would love to see those guys just all in the ring together. We probably won't get much of a chance to see Rhea Lee and Ospreay, since Ospreay is now heavyweight. But yeah, if we can somehow get those guys in the ring together, and let's get this Forbidden Portal open. Let's get Rey Fenix and Best of Super Juniors.
Man, oh my God. How fun would that be?
Oh, dude.
That dude, his singles matches are so good.
Yes, that would be incredible.
Yeah, he's fun. And he's good character stuff too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually just rewatched the episode, the Lucha episode of The Wrestlers, that show on Viceland.
Oh yeah.
And he was, it's just so endearing in that show. What a good guy, a guy you want to root for.
I know. It's so hard seeing him as a heel in AEW with Pentagon. Like Pentagon, I can get being a heel, but even Pentagon, he's so over. But I can get you pushing Pentagon as a heel. But Rey Fenix, I mean, the way that guy wrestles, he's so charismatic. Like you mentioned, such a good guy when you get to hear his story and just kind of hear him talk and how he loves wrestling. It's like he's a guy you just want to see succeed and get behind. And it's like, man, I have a hard time booing this guy.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the tough thing about those kind of behind the scenes looks is that you end up endearing yourself to your fans, and then you got to be a bad guy. But I mean, Phoenix proved he can go in that New Japan style when he got in the ring with Kenny Omega, and I think that was just such a good match. And his match with whichever one of the Jacksons,
it was Nick. Was it Nick? Yeah, Nick Jackson.
Yeah, that was a great match too, and really similar to the kind of junior heavyweight style New Japan too. So he's like one of those dream guys that I'd love to see come over for a tour.
Yeah, definitely. Next up, we have the most overrated. So at number 10, we have Cody. Number 9, Sonata. Number 8, Brock Lesnar. Number 7, Jay White. Number 6, Britt Baker. Number 5, Shane McMahon. Number 4, Lacey Evans. Number 3, Bray Wyatt. Number 2, Seth Rollins. And number 1, King Corbin. So our New Japan guys here. So Jay White and Sonata.
And I'm seeing an honorable mention of Juice Robinson.
Yeah, Juice, yeah.
Which, I don't know. I can't debate any of those.
Yeah, I feel like, I don't know, Juice is kind of a weird one where I feel like Juice has kind of been slotted in the right spots for the most part. I think he's kind of gotten the short end on the stick on some of the booking decisions they've made of him, but I don't know if he's a guy that I would say is overrated. I don't know, but
yeah, I mean, I think some of this is pure. Like you look at these guys and like, yeah, these are pretty big names, and none of them are particularly great in the ring.
Yeah,
and I think that's how this award is perceived. That these are guys with star power, but less of the in-ring kind of work rate. I mean, and Sonata's the only guy that you could really say, I think, on this list that has the work rate piece, but people, I don't know. People put a lot of thought into whether they like or don't like Sonata.
Right. I mean, like we mentioned earlier with the whole Okada series, there was a lot of debate with people. People either loved it or hated it. And yeah, people are very kind of divisive on just Sonata, his style, and the whole, stoic, cold skull kind of persona, and thinking he's getting a push he doesn't deserve kind of thing. So I can see.
But where's the push? I mean, it's not that's not a real thing, I don't think.
Well, I think people saw it as a push just because he was in there with Okada, especially four times in 1 year. But clearly he lost. He
kept losing.
Yeah. So yeah, but I could see why somebody would argue Sonata. And then with Jay White, obviously he's, always in top positions, but, a lot of his matches sometimes do have like the Bullet Club shenanigans and the cheating and Gato and Jado and God and stuff like that. And I know Jay White's another guy where people either love him or you hate him, and a lot of people hate him and really hate that he's in that main event picture. And, people think he's kind of ruining the main event style.
He's going to surprise people when he eventually goes babyface, I think.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Like, I saw him as a babyface in Ring of Honor kind of before he came back as Switchblade, and, like, he was awesome. That match with Ospreay he had before he came back from Excursion was awesome. And, yeah, I think once he's babyface, he's going to be able to unleash, like, his high-flying offense and just be super, charismatic in the babyface way and really just kind of win the crowd over. So now
I think it'll be a couple of years before they pull that trigger. But once they do, I think they'll have another star on their hands.
Yeah, there should be no rush to turn him face. Yeah, I think he can kind of sit in that heel spot for quite some time until you can kind of bring in a compelling character that can kind of force him to go face. And then on the other side here, we have the most underrated. So at number 10, we have the Bastard Pac. Number 9, Cesaro. Number 8, Kushida. Number 7, Samoa Joe. Number 6, Mustafa Ali. Number 5, Tomohiro Ishii. Number 4, Ricochet. Number 3, Toa Hanare. Number 2, Matt Riddle. And number 1, Chad Gable. I refuse to say Shorty G. Chad Gable.
I respect that. Toa Hanare right there, number 3. I mean, people love that dude. they want him to succeed. They want him to get a better spot. I mean, like part of me just thinks people want him out of that young lion and dad's mix. I think it's time to give him some mid-card stuff to do at least, or mid-card stuff, to be honest. I mean, like that's the only way to put it. So, other than that, I don't think that there's much. I mean, our man Kushida just flailing down there in NXT.
Literally getting thrown in the trash on TV.
Mean, put him in the bin. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
What are you like? What a visual. Yeah, and I mean Ishii on this list. I don't know. In the circles I'm talking in, he is definitely not underrated. He is placed at the top.
Yeah. I think why people might have voted him underrated is just one of those things where Ishii is not a guy that's getting IWGP title shots. He's not even getting IC title shots that much. He's kind of stays in that never division. And I know a lot of people who are big fans of Ishii want to see him in main event in that. I think he's in the caliber of being IWGP champion or IC champion. And so I think maybe they say he's underrated because he's not in like a position that, say, like a Naito or Okada or Ospreay gets in.
Yeah. So what's your take there?
So, I mean, I love Ishii. He's awesome. And I just think from their standpoint, obviously with the age and then maybe just kind of the physique, he's probably not the kind of guy they see as IWGP champion. And I don't know if he's a guy that would, quote unquote, draw as the IWGP champion. I think he's that kind of guy that you have in the mid-card, upper mid-card in that never division that puts on these bangers, and you love him because of that. But I'm curious to see how an IWGP title run would go. I'm not sure how that would work out, how those matches would look, how you end up drawing with him on top. I mean, I'm sure the matches would be great, but I just think it'd be a different dynamic of all of a sudden he's kind of the top dog and IWGP champion.
Yeah, I mean, I could see at some point here soon Ishii getting the kind of that transitional title reign where they had to bounce it from a heel back to a babyface, but they didn't want to blow off a big match, so they somehow build up Ishii with, like, say, a New Japan Cup win, and he actually wins the title match, and then you bounce it over to, I don't know, Okada, Ibushi, like you name it, like somehow you build up that next match. So, I mean, he could be a guy that wins the title and never successfully defends it, but it's almost the Gold Watch Championship, but he's been really important to that company. So, wouldn't surprise me for them to do something like that. And they like to do that when they're going to try to bounce the title back to somebody without blowing off a big match that they want to save for later. Which I think is really smart too.
Yeah.
But they're really careful with who they put the IWGP Heavyweight Championship on. But he would be on the list for one of those transitional title reigns and the kind of the Gold Watch reign. I think he'd be further up the list than someone like Shingo even, just because he spent more time in New Japan.
Right.
So.
But yeah, I just feel like the contenders for that title are so stacked right now. Like you mentioned, you do got Shingo, Ospreay, you got Kota Ibushi. There's some guys that are in that kind of pipeline that I think it might be hard for Ishii to kind of get around.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's gonna, I'd like to see him like at least dip his toe in the IC title reign or title kind of picture if they ever separate those titles again.
Yeah, I think the IC title would be a kind of great spot for him because you can main event some kind of B-level shows with him as IC champion against some kind of top guys, and I think those shows would draw really well.
Yeah, I guess you've made your case for him being underrated though, because he's always going to be that guy that's beloved in like the circle, right? And then on the outside, you see this guy that you're kind of unfamiliar with, and you're like, yeah, he has good matches, but like, what else does he have? So, he is the quintessential like strong style, never openweight champion, like beefy boy though. I mean, like he has his niche in New Japan, and he can continue to ride that as long as he can go.
Yeah. So up next, we got Rookie of the Year. Number 9, we have Alex Coughlin. Number 8, Marco Stunt. Number 7, Private Party. Number 6, Strong Machine J. Number 5, Chris Statlander. Number 4, Clark Connors. Number 3, Cain Velasquez. Number 2, Carl Fredericks. And number 1, Jungle Boy. Man, I think Carl was robbed here.
I mean, Jungle Boy's good.
Yeah, I love Jungle Boy, and he had a great year. But I mean, Carl Fredericks, man, was tearing it up this year. I don't know, man. The voting was very close there. Jungle Boy 249, Carl Fredericks 219. But man, I don't know. I feel like Fredericks it's a little bit more crisper for me than I think Jungle Boy.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. I think Spicy Carl got robbed, but it's hard to. I mean, it's hard to take Jungle Boy out of the conversation too.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and Carl Fredericks, yes, this I guess technically is his rookie year, but he and Jungle Boy both had been wrestling quite a bit, but they both ascended into kind of the conversation this year. So great year for both these guys. No shame coming in second on the rookie of the year as a LA Dojo young lion. I mean, a lot of LA Dojo on this list though.
Yeah, Clark Connors, Alex Coughlin. Yeah, these guys, they've came in. Shibata's training these boys right. Came in there. They pretty much won the rivalry for the most part over the New Japan Dojo, tore those boys up. And so, yeah, these guys are all great.
Yeah, and that I think is my biggest takeaway here is that like that LA Dojo system is healthy and it's going to produce a lot of talent for New Japan. So, I mean, Fredericks, Connors, Coughlin, over the next 3 years or so, I think you're going to see each of these guys get really nice spots on the card.
Yeah,
outside of their black trunks.
Yeah. So up next we have the best non-wrestler. Number 10 we have Jake Hager. Number 9 Peter. Number 8 Shibata. Number 7 Aubrey Edwards. Number 6 William Regal. Number 5 Tully Blanchard. Number 4 Gato. Number 3 Selena De La Renta. Number 2 Selena Vega. And number 1 Paul Heyman. So we got some New Japan on there with Gato and Peter and Shibata.
So do you think Gato and Peter got on this list for the same reasons?
I mean, they're both assets to their the people they manage at ringside. Both Bullet Club. They're
both very distracting.
Yeah. Very sneaky tactics there. I do think Peter could have been a little bit higher. She brings a lot to Yujiro's act. I mean, without her, could he really be the Tokyo Pimp? It would kind of kill his gimmick and his aura. I think she should be higher.
I mean, does Yujiro even get on the card without her?
Yeah, I mean,
it's tough to say.
Yeah. I think.
But seriously, do you think Gato gets on this list because of his booking or because of his shenanigans?
I think I think for this voting, I think he's getting on for like shenanigans and just kind of being that managing Jay White mostly. Yes, he's in Bullet Club, but he mainly managing Jay White, and obviously Jay is in these big semi-main and main events and title matches, and Gato's usually a key component in those matches, whether he's pulling the ref out, taking a bump, pulling out brass knuckles, distracting his opponent. Like, Gato's a very active part in all Jay's matches, and I think people realize that, and I think that's why he got voted so high here.
Yeah, I agree, and I think I think people hate him, and I think that's the point, right? So
right.
People hate that he's taking away their work rate matches, and even Jay White's work rate matches, and Gato's ruining that, and people get really hot about that, and that's kind of what he's trying to do. I think
that's the heat. Yeah.
So I mean, and I think the heat is that he's literally ruining what could be a great 5-star whatever match.
Right.
And if that's the kind of wrestling that you're into, those matches are still 5 stars probably.
Yeah.
And I know there's people that went 5 stars on matches like Jay White and Naito, especially at Destruction. But I mean, like he plays the role really well. Now, a lot of people think he does it too much, and the inside info is that like he's booking it, so like he's writing himself into these situations. So I think that if this wasn't, highly trusted New Japan Pro Wrestling, if this was Vince McMahon pulling all these shenanigans, you'd hear this. There's no way he makes this list.
All right. Then also interesting here, Shibata at number 8. Also, Shibata had a big role to play in Kenta's heel turn and the whole Kenta and Goto rivalry and that whole angle that went down there. And also too, a lot of on-screen stuff like the LA Dojo as well. So, yeah, I think it's pretty cool Shibata got on the list here.
Yeah, and he's in a cool role. I know a lot of people wanted to see him wrestle. I think New Japan pivoted away from him appearing in any sort of physicality because I don't think they can deliver it. So I hope he lands on this list again, though. I like when he appears in some way, but I think that they're going to be more careful with teasing any sort of matches or physicality.
Yeah. Then moving on, we've got Best Television Announcer, number 10, Chris Charlton, number 9, Don Callis, number 8, Hugo Savinovich, number 7, Jim Ross, number 6, Jim Cornette, number 5, Nigel McGuinness, number 4, Mauro Ranallo, number 3, Tony Schiavone, number 2, Excalibur, and then number 1, Kevin Kelly, representing New Japan there.
My man.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't. I am wholeheartedly biased on this one, so not a lot I can say. I think Chris Charlton's fantastic in his role, landing at number 10 here, but Kevin Kelly, he puts in the work. I can attest to that. He puts in the work, and he is happy to he's happy to take crowdsourced information. He's happy to collaborate with people, and he's happy to credit where credit's due. And I think that is honorable. Obviously I have a hell of a bias towards him, for that, based on the work that we've been able to put together. But yeah, I mean, like, dude, he's got it together. He's humble to a fault. But he takes that role really seriously. He's really good at building up whoever's sitting with him too. So, I mean, if you look at Gino Gambino and Chris Charlton, like, those dudes had not done this before, at least not at this scale and at this level, and with this much consistency. And Kevin Kelly's the guy steering the ship, and he will deserve this award probably until he puts the microphone down.
Yeah, I think Kevin is great, and I really enjoyed his commentary in Ring of Honor kind of before the New Japan run, and then getting the New Japan run. Also, he's been a great asset to the promotion for the English commentary. Does just an amazing job, and like you mentioned, really lifting up who he works with. Even I think of Caprice Coleman, that kind of run that Caprice had in New Japan for those. I forget which tour that was, but I think Kevin Kelly did a great job with him and just kind of helping him out acclimate to New Japan and just become a better commentator. So yeah, Kevin is just such a valuable resource for that company, and does an excellent job. And yeah, as long as he's on the booth, on the microphone, like, he's going to be in contention for winning this.
Yeah, and I think what Kevin Kelly does so well is that he is very good at telling stories from the beginning. So, like, as the guys are entering, and you've got these extravagant entrances, especially at a show like, some of the bigger shows like Wrestle Kingdom or Dominion, but like, he will tell you almost the whole story, because like, we on the English side of things, like, we don't necessarily understand everything that's happening in those great promo packages that they put together. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, I don't know how much Japanese Kevin Kelly knows, but to my knowledge, he's putting these stories together himself too. So he's writing his own script, and he knows exactly what he's going to say as these guys are entering, to get the English speaking fans the whole story from the bottom to the top, which I think is where some of my work comes in, and why I think him and I have been able to put together some good stuff, and I've started to learn like what's most useful for them, because he wants to tell the whole story all the way back to the beginning, because there's always that chance that these guys are watching these people are watching for the first time, and they've heard about New Japan and how great it is, and he wants to make sure that he communicates everything he can before they get in the ring, and he has to call just a pure match. So I think it's a really cool approach. And I think that he has really honed in on it, especially even in the last couple of years, to the point where it's just really, he's perfected the role of what he wants to be doing there.
Yeah. And like you mentioned too, it's kind of like the testament of New Japan kind of telling the story in the ring for him to be able, like, he doesn't have to really know the language fully to kind of understand what's going on there. So yeah, just does an excellent job there.
Yeah, I could do a whole pod on him, but I don't need to kiss his ass anymore. He might still take my emails after this one.
All right, so we're gonna do one more category here, and then we'll switch over to answering some of the listener questions. So last one we'll look at here is the best major wrestling show. So at number 10, we had NXT TakeOver. That was in Connecticut. Number 9, we had WrestleMania. Number 8, Dominion. Number 7, DDT's Coming to America. Number 6, DDT's Ultimate Party. Number 5, Best of the Super Junior Finals. Number 4, the G1 Climax Finals. Number 3, NXT TakeOver New York. Number 2, Wrestle Kingdom 13. And then number 1, AEW Double or Nothing.
That was another close one. 359 for Double or Nothing and 323 for Wrestle Kingdom. And I think Wrestle Kingdom's always going to be in that conversation. It'll be interesting to see what happens this year because you had the 2 nights. I wonder if that'll split the vote, which could be a problem for New Japan if they care about winning this. But yeah, to be honest, I don't know what my favorite show of the year was. I think that Best of Super Juniors final was great. Obviously lifted up with Ospreay and Shingo, and then you had Moxley's debut there too. So I thought that was really important for the, where New Japan was headed, and that the G1 Climax final was awesome because you had the Kenta turn, and you had some like big story stuff, and you had some really good matches on there too. But yeah, I don't know. I'm tough to debate because, again, I think Double or Nothing was like a really important show for the future of American wrestling. And to be honest, like the other shows that I would put on here would be like a couple of the Corkins from Best of Super Juniors, where you had like really hot matches. You had one that it was Shingo and Dragon Lee and Will Ospreay and Bandito.
Yeah,
that was just like, I forget the date. It was one of the May shows. That was just like an awesome show. It was both blocks. It was all singles matches. It was just like banger after banger after banger. So that was the only show that I would think of that I would even put on here. But and that might have been my show of the year. But that's just my style.
Yeah, I think all the shows on this list, you can kind of point out a reasoning for why people voted for these, whether it's from just the cards, match qualities, what it meant for the promotion, what it meant for the overall wrestling landscape. And I think that's kind of why Double or Nothing won. It's because of the kind of the overall, what it meant for wrestling in general, kind of the real big kickoff there for AEW. And like we mentioned, so close to Wrestle Kingdom 13, which was a great card. And you had, your last Kenny Omega IWGP title match for the foreseeable future, and just a couple other moments there on that card as well. So,
are you surprised not to see the Madison Square Garden show on here?
Yes and no. I think it's probably not on there just because of the Ring of Honor components of the show. And obviously, anybody you talk to, for the most part, it's like, I love the New Japan stuff, but the Ring of Honor stuff was, lower the show for me. And so I think that's probably what happened here. Because overall, I mean, I was there live. I thought it was a great show, even with the Ring of Honor stuff. And it was just a huge thing, Okada main eventing, winning the title from Jay White. And I thought it was, a great moment, and it's selling out. It was a big moment for both promotions. But yeah, just the, Ring of Honor's end, I think, kind of really probably drug it down for the voters here.
Such a shame.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Ring of Honor is on the upswing now, it seems, but yeah, I mean, it's tough to get through the Ring of Honor stuff on that particular show too. They overbooked it, and it sucks.
Yeah. All right, so just got a quick few news items here, and then we'll get to all the listener questions. So we did have some dates here for the Best of the Super Junior tournament. It was announced here by New Japan. So the tournament will be starting on May 12th at Korakuen Hall, and it will go all the way to the finals, ending on June 6th at Ota Ward Gym in Tokyo. And it looks like they'll be running Korakuen on May 12th, 13th, 14th, the 21st, 22nd, 23rd, and the 4th. And then Osaka shows on the 29th and 30th.
Yeah, and it's the same number of dates as they did last year. So that leads me to believe the block sizes will be the same. At least that's the plan as it stands. So
Yeah.
it's largely the same layout as last year, except for the finals are in a much smaller building.
Yeah. Yeah, so they have no problem selling that out.
Right. These are gonna be sold out shows mostly, I think.
Yeah. Up on NJPW World, the NJPW Together project has been going on. They've uploaded a lot of archive matches, a lot of interview and talk show stuff. So that stuff is still going on NJPW World to get some content up there while we're waiting to get shows cleared from the coronavirus. Also up on NJPW World is the True Kazuchika Okada documentary, a documentary on Kazuchika Okada. Also, we have Juice Robinson on the NJPW Official English Podcast this week. The Monday free match on YouTube is Toru Yano versus Kazuchika Okada from the 2013 New Japan Cup. And we have announcements here of participants in the Ring of Honor Pure Title Tournament. We do have some New Japan representation. We have Rocky Romero, Yuji Nagata, and Ren Narita who are going to be in this tournament with Doug Williams, Jonathan Gresham, Alex Shelley, Mark Haskins, Slex, Tracy Williams, Marty Skrull, Freddie Yehai, Joe Hendry, Dalton Castle, Josh Woods, and Tony Deppen. Looks like a very interesting tournament there.
Yeah, I think that's going to be fun. And I think booking Nagata in that tournament might be, that may be what Yuji Nagata's got to do for a little while. He's got to do some kind of ambassador style work for New Japan. So, and I love seeing Ren Narita getting some legitimate work. I heard he was really good on the most recent Black Label Pro show. I've heard he made like pretty extensive strides into he matches up with in the Ring of Honor tournament. And I'm a little excited to see that relationship is. So, Chris, I
lost you there for a second. After you were saying like you did great in Black Label Pro.
Oh. I was just saying that Ren Narita sounds like he had a really good match in Black Label Pro, and he's really kind of evolved as a wrestler, and he's starting to really find his way here. So, and I'm excited to see that potentially that the New Japan and Ring of Honor relationship is at least back to where it was before. I mean, they also just announced the world shows, the old Ring of Honor New Japan tour in the Midwest. So, and they're coming through Chicago with that kind of combo. So, I'm pleased to see that. I think that will help. That'll actually help New Japan continue their growth in America if Ring of Honor is good.
Yeah, I think that'll be a big help. And it seems like Ring of Honor has been on kind of the upswing here with just the way Marty's been booking and obviously pushing guys like Dragon Lee and Bandito and Ray Horace and Flip and Villain Enterprises and just some of the other international acts. He's bringing in top indie people like Tony Deppen, Jeff Cobb still making dates, Dan Maff. So looks like Ring of Honor is kind of on the upswing for this year. So I'm glad to see that.
Yeah, fingers crossed, and I think that can only help New Japan because I don't know that they can put enough great cards together on their own to sell the size buildings that they wanted to do with New Japan of America on so many dates. So I'm actually starting to hear that they're going to run fewer dates than they had anticipated, but they are going to do some bigger shows. I think you've got Madison Square Garden, and I think you might see some 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 seat venues, but you're going to see single shows instead of big tours. But that's just a rumor.
Yeah. All right, so now jumping into the questions. Thank you everybody who sent questions in for this week. So starting off, front of the show, Darren Kirby, he asks, who out of the U.S. dojo crop of talent has impressed you the most? He's like, I'd like to throw another one in just to take your gauge. So that's the second question. Oh, yeah, the first question. So who out of the LA dojo has impressed you the most?
I mean, Carl Fredericks is a star. That's really what it comes down to. So I think he's going to be the guy. I think, Connors has been interesting in his kind of character work, and he had a good run in the Super Junior Tag League. But yeah, I mean, I think Fredericks is going to be the guy.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, Fredericks has been the guy that I've been most impressed with, and like you mentioned, the guy's a star. You can just tell by the way they position him. Winning that Young Lions Cup and just some of the matches he's won. He's won probably a majority. We can look at your stats and see like the matches he's won in the Young Lion division, and yeah, just the charisma, the wrestling, the athleticism. I think he's the full package there. And then I also like Clark Connors a lot too. Kind of reminds me of a young Chris Benoit. He's very intense and kind of small in stature, but just really explosive. So those are my two guys there.
That's a good crop. I mean, they're gonna turn out some talent. So, and I hope there's another group behind them, because it seems like it's a system that works.
Yeah. And then Kirby's second question here, he says, with Mox being the AEW World Champion and the IWGP US Champion, which is a mid-tier championship in NJPW, in your view, does that diminish the prestige of the AEW World title?
I mean, in my opinion, no. I think, to be perfectly honest, I think like both characters are written mostly separately. It's the same guy, same demeanor, same wrestling style, but I think in the sense of their positioning and how they're utilized in each of their companies, I think they're completely different. I think if anything, what Jon Moxley is doing is raising the visibility of the IWGP United States Championship. So, I mean, being the top of a pretty major promotion in the US, with the title, I think that when you look at that and you say like, oh, he's got, I guess, the second or third tier championship, maybe fourth, if you really look at it, in New Japan, I think that makes you wonder what's going on higher up the card.
Yeah, totally agree with you. Obviously, there's a lot of eyes on Mox just based off of, the weekly Dynamite on TNT and the great ratings they're doing there. And I think there's a lot of interest in just what he does in and out of AEW. And so with him, now as a world champion and still being committed to doing New Japan, he's doing OTT dates. Like, I think people are going to kind of follow him wherever he goes. And so I think he's going to have more eyeballs on him, like you mentioned, for those U.S. title matches. So you can do like a big show and have him in the U.S. title match and get some more eyes on that show.
Yeah, I mean, just look at the program he did with Suzuki, and that got a ton of attention on U.S. social media. So, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I look at any opportunity to post Moxley's name on my Twitter feed because people pay attention. So, and he's entertaining. I mean, he's great. I was there in Chicago at Revolution, and he's just got something going on right now, and you can tell he's firing on all cylinders. So I think any way New Japan can use him, and I think with the U.S. belt is the perfect way to do it, because they're clearly not concerned with that belt being defended in the United States,
right.
Which I guess is ironic, but
yeah,
I think it's a great place to put him and position him in a way that they don't need him on every card, but they can kind of tap into it when they need to.
Yeah. Next question from Reddit user T0M0M. How do you think New Japan should handle the coronavirus situation from here on out? Might it be a good idea to have some events behind closed doors so that certain shows aren't missed entirely? Yeah, I think for New Japan, it's almost a little bit out of their hands right now. I feel like they're kind of at the will of the Japanese government. I mean, if the Japanese government says, still no more public outings, there's not much they can do there. I mean, they could kind of go the, empty arena route, and depending on how long the situation lasts, I mean, they might have to do that just for storyline purposes, maybe.
Yeah, see, I don't know, right? Like this is a weird situation, and I don't envy them being in this position to try to figure out how to continue their business as a touring live event company. I think that's a significant portion of their revenue. So selling tickets, I mean, they run a ton of shows every year. You know, and on their level, it's just as many as WWE in its heyday when they were running, you know, 4 shows a week. So so to run empty arena matches or empty arena shows, even, I don't know that serves their business.
Right. Because they're essentially making no money off of that. Yeah.
You make no money off of that, and you end up blowing off matches. Probably. I mean, you're probably not going to waste, you know, something really good on something like that, but I just don't know that it serves them at all. So, I mean, maybe they'll do it, but luckily they had blown off all of their, I guess you could say, their New Year Dash matches, right? Everything that was set up right after Wrestle Kingdom, like they blew all that off on the New Beginning tour.
Right.
Like, and I'd have to look back to see how they've handled all that in the past, but like they literally took every one of those feuds and blew them off. So they are starting from scratch right now anyway. So, I mean, this pause, in a sense of story, this pause couldn't have happened at a better time for them.
Yeah.
They're not in the middle of a tournament. They're not in the middle of a build. They're not in the middle of anything. They were literally at a reset. So, I mean, and it's a shame that we missed out on Naito Hiromu, but that's another match that you can book, right? Like you can just put it on another show that, you know, call it the anniversary show if you want, or put it on Sakura Genesis if you come back right before that and you just run the anniversary card and do a reset there. Like, and then maybe you've got all April to put together some shows and run the New Japan Cup, maybe in a different configuration. But I think there's a chance that we don't see New Japan until April. I think there's a chance they don't come back until Sakura Genesis. And I think that there's a chance that they run the anniversary show at Sakura Genesis, and then they run the New Japan Cup in sometime in April, even though they didn't have many dates booked. But you gotta bet these arenas and venues and gymnasiums want that revenue too.
Oh yeah, I'm sure Cork and Hall's like, yeah, well, we're missed out on that business. Like, yeah, we'll help you guys out. Let's set some stuff up. Yeah,
exactly. So I don't want to say I'm hopeful for that, but I don't think that's a terrible contingency plan. If I were them, I would focus on doing kind of this other content before I focused on trying to put together empty arena matches, though.
Right.
I mean, though I do think if there's a match you're going to put in an empty hall that could pull off a great show and probably like get somebody's 5 stars, I mean, throw Naito and Hiromu in a ring at Cork and Hall and make it empty. I think they could actually do some really interesting stuff with that too. So like that would be the match that I would put in it, but I don't think that's how people want to see it.
Yeah. And then also too, something to think about, a lot of those guys are coming over to the States for WrestleMania weekend. And so, you know, there's a lot of issues with people traveling. So you might just want to get those guys in the States as soon as possible and kind of keep them locked down there so they could be ready to go for the big WrestleMania week here in Tampa.
Yeah, I have never been more excited for a Super Card of Honor because it might be the next time I see any of these guys.
Yeah. Next question here from Reddit user dgross69. I don't know if the faction system matters much more, but which team had the most wins as a unit?
Yeah, so we talked about this earlier. I mean, LIG is on the upswing here, and that was the same in 2019. Like those guys were booked strong, and now you've just got another, I guess, another bullet in the chamber with Hiromu. So those guys are going to get the wins.
Yeah, we can mention, LIJ definitely the top faction right now and just got most of the belts, getting most of the wins. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Next question from Reddit user Highest Fly Flow. Did you guys see Liger mark out to Natsu Samuri and Mayu Iwatani? Last week I said Stardom's empty arena show was a bad idea, but they really made it work. He says also, hello, Chris.
Did you watch the empty arena show?
No, so I did not. It's on my list to kind of catch up on. So I do want to watch the show, but yeah, I heard Liger was on commentary, but I did not see him in action there. Did you?
So I'm not a Joshi watcher, hardly at all. But I am starved for live wrestling content. So I did put the Stardom show on. And you know what? I enjoyed it. Luckily, I've got a little community of wrestling fans that I can watch wrestling with kind of digitally. So I was trying to, like, you know, sneak a look and catch up on who's who and what's what. But they did make the empty hall show work. And Liger was a really he's kind of fun to keep an ay out for. So and I believe he said it was the first time he had called Joshi, and he seemed to have a really good time. So it was an interesting thing to watch. I like watching things that are kind of oddball. So like my White Sox played a empty stadium match in Baltimore a couple of years ago when there was riots up there, and it's just kind of trippy to see things completely out of their element like that. So and wrestling was kind of like that too, but like the Joshi kind of mannerisms are so big and bold to begin with that they just kept doing them, even though there was no crowd there. So I don't know how that would translate to something like New Japan, but it's worth a watch for sure.
Yeah, definitely want to check it out. Heard a lot of good things about the show, and heard a lot of people say, yeah, they did a great job kind of making it work. Also, he has another question here. It says, how are you guys holding up on the lack of content? He says, personally, I love this break because I've been able to watch tons of 90s and 2000s All Japan Pro Wrestling and New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Yeah, what are you watching?
So, I mean, obviously I'm watching Dynamite, watching NXT, but I really haven't felt the void with anything, really. I did catch a couple of Ring of Honor matches from their last tour that had like Marty and Bandito and Slex and stuff like that. But besides that, I haven't really watched anything. Like I mentioned, I took the opportunity to kind of like get out the house and just hang out with the non-marks in my life. So yeah, but I am kind of itching right now, so I might have to fire up and, you know, watch some of the archives that are coming up, or just find something, any kind of live. You know, I haven't watched NWA in a while. I might get back on that. MLW, I haven't watched in a while either. So
yeah, luckily I'm a baseball fan, and spring training is happening. So I've probably watched more spring training than I normally would, especially typically it's competing with the New Japan Cup. So other than that, I mean, yeah, I caught up on Dragon Gate. I watched all their big shows because I hadn't watched anything from them since Kobe World last summer. So had some big shows from them to just kind of like plug through as I watch stuff. And to be honest, I've been watching some of the WWE documentaries too. And I mentioned I'd watched the Wrestlers, the Viceland show, kind of plugging away at some interesting episodes of that too. So yeah, I'm itching for some live content that I really can get behind. Luckily I also cover AEW for PW Torch, so I've been able to put some kind of more muscle behind my coverage there. So, and I got to go to Revolution because it was in Chicago.
Nice.
Last weekend. So that was that kind of it both added fuel to the fire, but also satiated my needs of wrestling. So yeah, I mean, there is so much content out there that it's hard to ever feel caught up if you're trying to kind of keep an eye on everything. So, and New Japan is one of the largest content providers and in my opinion, the best, but it's nice to be able to kind of tap into some stuff that I've been meaning to get back around to. And I've been keeping up with AAA and stuff like that. And I think I'll probably, fall back into my old ways of just watching everything New Japan does as soon as they're back.
Yeah. Right now is kind of a good time to take advantage if you have a YouTube queue, or, just following other promotions to kind of catch up and before whatever New Japan does and comes back in full force. Next question here from Reddit user, why did you do that, bro? He says, with the next show about a week away, what changes do you expect for the remaining cards on this tour if the rest of the events do not get canceled?
What do you think they'll do? I kind of laid out what I think might happen.
Yeah, I mean, there's such a hard position there, and it's going to be very hard to get a tournament done in 5 days. It's what's left. So, I mean, they could just reduce the bracket down and just say, based off of win-loss records, here are the top 8 guys in New Japan right now, and they're going to be the ones that get to fight for the double championship opportunity. That's a route they could go. Or maybe they kind of change up the formats and maybe kind of make these shows kind of more of like a Road to style shows. And so they could and then restructure the tournament. If they want to do the full 32, restructure it for April, turn these into kind of Road 2s and then build to Sakura Genesis.
Yeah, I think if they come back next week, I think they'll try to run the New Japan Cup in those 5 days, or maybe they'll add a show, or I don't know. Or they'll trim it down to 16.
Yeah.
I think I could, I could trim it down to 16 for them, and it would be.
Yeah, I think it's pretty easy to kind of weed some people out. And
I mean, and like it wouldn't even be like necessarily like giving away who the winners were going to be in round 1. Like you could remove completely a couple of these matches, right? But and then just rebracket it. But yeah, I think if they come back next week, they'll do some sort of tournament, and they'll try to get just back on track.
Yeah.
If they don't, I think that we see a whole restructure of what the rest of the year looks like and what Sakura Genesis looks like, because you really do you lose your main event completely.
Right, unless you try to put the Naito Hiromu match there.
Yeah, which I mean, I don't know that anyone would be opposed to that. I think that's as good a draw as anything.
Yeah, I mean the show's already sold out, so why not?
Right. Yeah, give them a show, right? I mean, like that's that. Let them run the match, and you're gonna get some New Japan World subscribers off that too.
Yeah. Next question from Reddit user Asayo Jimbo says, since there hasn't been a New Japan show in a few weeks, what are your thoughts on the possibility of an NXT Japan?
I'll defer to you.
Yeah, so we've kind of talked about this a little bit last week, and the rumors of just All Japan potentially becoming an NXT Japan. Not a real big fan of it. Not a big fan of WWE just trying to come into different countries and kind of bully their way in and kind of take over the scene. We've kind of seen what's happened over in the UK and just how promotions are doing there, and them pulling talent from certain shows and just really kind of muscling their way into that kind of scene there, and just taking talent and really kind of trying to controlling the scene there. But I don't think with them, I think Japan is kind of structured a little bit differently than the UK. I think they're going to have a hard time kind of breaking into Japan. Even if they do take over All Japan, I feel like New Japan has such a strong foothold in the company, and some of the other promotions too, like DT and Stardom now being under Bushi Road. I feel like there's other promotions like we talked about that kind of have built up over time that credibility, and I don't know how fans are really going to take to an NXT Japan.
I think from what I know, there are WWE fans in Japan, and those aren't necessarily also New Japan fans, or they're not also Big Japan fans or Noah fans or fans of really anything else. And it's similar in America, right? Like there are WWE fans, and then there are at this point there's WWE fans, there's AEW fans, and then there's pro wrestling fans. And I think that there's some overlap. It's a Venn diagram, right? And I think that there's some overlap, but I think that segment is smaller in Japan. I think it being just WWE fans and American culture, American pop culture especially it's a popular thing in Japan. So I think that NXT Japan could tap into that. I think they could tap into some great talent that WWE has if they want to send Kushida back to Japan and have him be a draw, and even someone like Akira Tozawa is still with them, and
Nakamura.
And I mean Nakamura it would be the obvious choice, right, too, but I mean, and then Io Shirai and Kairi Sane and Asuka. I mean, they've got people that speak the language. They've got kind of key people. Like they could do what they're doing with NXT now, where they sent Finn Balor back, right? And so at one at a time, they could send one of their big Japanese draws. They could fill up some halls, and they could run some good shows, and they'll sell some tickets. But I think that I don't think this would go the same way that the NXT UK has gone. Right. I think that there is so much more history in Japanese pro wrestling than there is in Brit Rest, and I someone can correct me. Certainly, I'm sure I'll hear about it somewhere if someone listens to this. But I think that there's deeper roots in Japan with all these companies. So, but with that said, I don't think wrestling is as healthy as it looks in Japan either. I think that there is certainly some inherent risk that some of these smaller companies that people have come to enjoy will struggle when you add in someone else taking people's wrestling dollars and someone else with a lot of weight taking somebody's wrestling dollars. So, I mean, even when you look at a company like All Japan that seemed to be kind of on the upswing, a lot of attention on Kento Miyahara, and they're potentially willing to sell the WWE or at least put together a deep partnership with WWE, like that leads me to believe that that scene as a whole is not all that healthy.
Right.
And I think some of that is because our favorite New Japan is taking everyone's wrestling time and wrestling dollars. And like that works for me, but someone who's a fan of Noah or Dragon Gate or I mean, especially All Japan right now, and we just saw Wrestle One basically fold. I think that there's probably some fear on that level.
Yeah, and I think too another difference between like the Japan scene and the UK scene, I think like we've seen with the UK, a lot of those promotions were kind of happy with the opportunity of working with WWE and potentially being featured on the WWE network. We've seen in Japan a lot of promotions kind of stiff arm and kind of reject or decline working with WWE. So it seems like a lot of the promotions there, they want to stick to their tradition. They don't want their kind of structure being changed by WWE. So it could be one of those situations where even with NXT Japan coming in, the other promotions might kind of band together somewhat to kind of keep them at arm's length and not completely take over the scene.
Yeah, I think that's certainly a possibility too. And Okada even had mentioned like the Super Show with the Olympics and stuff happening. So it's going to be interesting to see. And it's going to be interesting to see what the NXT Japan model is if it does come to fruition here too, because it's just kind of, it's tougher to break into a scene that's so established as opposed to take over a scene by eliminating everyone in the UK.
Yeah, which kind of plays into the next question we have here from Reddit user T Flares. It says, with NXT Japan slowly becoming a thing, how do you think this will impact big events like Wrestle Kingdom and multiple days events like G1s and the tag tournaments?
I mean, I don't think WWE would be bold enough to try to counter program Wrestle Kingdom.
Yeah.
But what we did see was Noah ran at the same time as Wrestle Kingdom and sold out Cork and Hall this past year. So I don't doubt that they would do. I mean, Wrestle Kingdom has become like WrestleMania weekend. There are so many shows, and it's all the Japanese promotions. Anyone's running a show that weekend because you're capitalizing on everyone traveling in. Would they run a show during that weekend? Yeah, probably, because you get some US fans that'll pop their head in and go see what's going on in NXT Japan. And I don't think there's any shame in that. I think that's good business. But multi-day events, I mean, I think the G1, the tag tournaments, I think New Japan is so set in their schedule, barring virus outbreaks, that they're going to keep doing what they do. And again, they're the big dog in this fight. Like they are, they're essentially the WWE. And I don't think that NXT Japan is the AEW.
Right. And I mean, and like you mentioned, New Japan, they're so well booked ahead of time with buildings. They have everything kind of locked in place. the buildings there know New Japan and want to do business with New Japan. I'm not sure what kind of size buildings NXT Japan will be able to run or what even their model is going to be. Because if they do like the NXT UK model, they're just doing like, 1 or 2 dates a month and kind of doing these TV tapings. And then every 3 or 4 months, there's a random takeover that kind of pops up. So I don't even know like how many live events they're actually going to try and run, or they're going to do these like mini TV tapings and then every once in a while do a NXT TakeOver Tokyo or whatever and try to run a bigger card. So I don't know. I don't think they're going to have much of an impact at all on a Wrestle Kingdom, a G1, or any of the kind of tournaments there. Maybe for like the smaller shows, I don't know if they're doing like a Cork and Hall week and then WWE's running Ota War Gym or something like that. Maybe one of the smaller shows there might be some competition there, but for the bigger shows, I think New Japan's pretty set.
I think the language barrier is going to get in the way. Because running NXT UK was an easy transition for them. Everyone speaks English. I think that, I've never seen anything on the WWE network that's primarily in a different language. So yeah. I'll be curious to see how they handle that in a sense of either taped or live content.
Yeah, and just like, is there going to be English commentaries? Is there going to be Japanese commentary? Just what the whole model and structure is going to look like. So yeah, there's a lot of question marks that kind of need to be answered to see like how this thing is really going to perform.
Yeah.
So next question from Reddit user Rambone Slam Pig says, which wrestler do you think is most hurt by this downtime? Is there anyone who's starting to build up momentum who might struggle to pick back up?
What do you think?
I think a guy like maybe a Toa Hanare, who we've mentioned several times on this show. I feel like even though we mentioned he hasn't really been completely on the winning end, they have put him in, some positions to kind of shine. And I think the New Japan Cup would have been a great opportunity for him to kind of shine. I think a guy like him just needs a lot of reps and just needs to kind of get out there and just show how he's improving. So I think, being off for this month might hurt him a little bit. I'm sure he's still training and doing other stuff, but kind of built. I felt like he's kind of been on a roll kind of these first 2 months, and so kind of slow down there. And I'm sure like a lot of the young lions are in Japan right now. I'm not sure. I'm guessing they're still training at the dojo, but I feel the young lions is definitely important for their career growth to be getting these reps in.
I actually think that the person that is hurt the most by this is Naito. Just because he's a hot champ, he's selling tickets, he's doing great, and then you got to put a hard stop on it. And that's not to say that he won't, rebuild that momentum, probably immediately, but he was making believers out of people that didn't think he could be, or didn't think he would be a strong champion. So ashamed to see that this kind of first part of the year didn't get to kind of be seen through all the way, especially with something like the anniversary show and whoever he was going to defend against at Sakura Genesis. I think that he has all the momentum in the world, and like I said, like this stopping point worked in New Japan's favor. In a sense that it's definitely a reset time period for them. The New Japan Cup was going to reset pretty much everything. They had some minor feuds set up already, but we were going to see those evolve. So I think that the person at the top holding the belts, people are going to look back at this reign and pretty critically. And I think that potentially they're going to look back at this reign and say, well, he didn't defend forever because they were off and all that. So, but I hope anyone who needs to, I hope they're getting healthy.
Right. And this will be a great time.
I hope they come back just hot and ready to just like go at it. So I think that may be the ultimate benefit of this, is that like some of these guys are going to come back and they're going to have all their nicks and bruises all squared away, and they're going to be 100. The whole roster is going to be 100%. And that's probably a position that they don't get to be in very often.
Yeah. And for Naito, even though, it's kind of the break in the title reign. Once again, I feel like March was a kind of a good month for that to happen. really only missing the big Hiromu match because at New Japan Cup he was not good. He's probably just going to be in undercards with the LIJ guys that are in the tournament, and then he would have a Sakura Genesis match. So as of right now, I don't think Naito was completely hurt from like a scheduling standpoint, but if we do miss Sakura Genesis, that could definitely hurt the title reign.
Yeah.
So also he asked, did you see the Empty Arena Stardom show? Do you think NJPW might have to do something like that if the public health panic continues in Japan? Might they run a foreign tour instead? What happens if this drags out for months? So we talked about, you saw the Stardom show. Do you think NJPW could pull off an Empty Arena match? And we kind of talked about it not being good for business, but do you think they could pull it off?
I mean, I think they've got the talent, right? They've got the wrestlers to do it. I don't know that it's worthwhile. And I don't know how much those guys feed off the crowd, right? I mean, like I see that the thing about Stardom is that like their drawing numbers are much lower than New Japan Korakuen. They're not pulling in, typically they're not pulling in quite as many people. They just recently started to plateau over 1,000 tickets sold for their Korakuens. So they are used to smaller crowds. So to be in front of essentially nobody, not to say that's not different, but they're not so dependent on these kind of full big buildings to build out a great show. So, I think that they could pull it off if they put together the right matches, but it's always going to feel kind of goofy, and that's not really New Japan's style. I mean, look at DDT, and they did an empty Tokyo Dome match with Suzuki a couple of years ago, and like that's their style, to do something completely out of the box, and it's kind of gimmicked in that way. And the Stardom pulled it off more seriously than I thought they were going to, but again, I think they're used to smaller, potentially quieter crowds, whereas I think some of these guys, especially some of the guys that are dependent on those big moments in their matches, I think they may have a tough time hulking up for nobody.
Yeah. Doing their fighting spirit.
Yeah, and it would change the pacing of the matches and things of the sort. I mean, like there's a reason that these guys really only go when there's people in the crowd. So I don't think they're having, I mean, the Young Lions aside, I don't think a lot of people are having empty dojo matches where they're doing chop battles. So at least not the guys higher up the card. So
yeah.
I would be interested to see it, but I'm a skeptic.
Yeah, and then I think running a foreign tour could be a good idea if this runs for months, but I just don't know like how quickly they'd be able to kind of get stuff booked, either whether it's going to be here in the U.S. or maybe if they go to the U.K. or go to Australia. I just don't know like how that would look, trying to get buildings kind of last minute. Especially there are other countries that are canceling stuff, and I mean even here in the States, we are canceling big events. I mean, South by Southwest just got canceled a few days ago. I mean, there's been questions about WrestleMania being canceled, and obviously there's still cases of the coronavirus kind of going all over in multiple different countries. So booking a foreign tour might be hard depending on where they book it and where they're looking to go.
Yeah, and I think New Japan's pretty steadfast in their planning too. So I think if they've got something on the books, they're going to continue to try to execute that. And by that I mean, they're not going to get in the way of the Madison Square Garden show. Right, they're not going to book around it. That takes out essentially the entire East Coast market, probably, unless they're trying to put something together, like in the next month. And even that, like that would be a booking nightmare from a logistics standpoint, like booking venues and hotels for all these guys and all that. So,
yeah.
I know that they've, I've heard they've got some plans for some bigger U.S. shows. I've heard they've got some plans for the U.K. But much later in the year, to the point where they, obviously haven't announced anything yet. And I think they're going to try to just stick to the plan and try to come back as soon as it's safe. They're going to try to come back, and I think that's really the New Japan way, right?
Right, yeah.
to stay steadfast and stay strong in your belief that, the plan that you have in place will be fruitful once you're able to execute it. So, and I kind of hope that's the way they go.
Yeah, and I think as far as like booking shows, I feel like they might have an easier time if they wanted to book more shows. I think they would have an easier time like booking a Cork and Hall to make up for some stuff for some other buildings in Japan than rather trying to come to like the US or UK and trying to book, like you mentioned, hotels and all the flights and all that stuff that comes with that.
Yeah, and I know Cork is booked out probably pretty much the whole year, but it would be interesting to see them run like the early slot on a Corkin.
Right, yeah.
The 11:30 a.m. on a Sunday instead of the night slot because someone's already booked. Like, I think that would be interesting, and I think that'd be an interesting way to get a couple more shows on the books if that's what they got to do. And I would bet that that's more of what's available than the nights because everyone's trying to run Corkin.
Yeah. So another question here about the empty arena from Reddit user PSan91. Do you think New Japan should do the same as Stardom and do a behind closed doors show and put it on YouTube for free to get new people interested in a time where there aren't any live events?
I don't think that's the way to get people interested in what they do. I think that they should put some great matches on YouTube for free, or even just a full great show. At this point, put Wrestle Kingdom up on YouTube for free. Night 1, night 2, get people into it. That's recent enough that you'd be able to catch up by just watching those shows. I mean, do it until you're back and you're generating more revenue again. And maybe you'll get a bunch of New Japan subscribers. So I don't know. I mean, like that's a tough business call, but I don't know that live content is the way to do it.
Yeah, I feel like for New Japan, like you mentioned, it would be to truly get somebody's interest. A free match or a free show would be the way to go because the empty arena is not going to fully grasp somebody to what New Japan, the atmosphere, like how it's really like. So I would either do free shows, free matches, or put up some of that content from the NJPW Together project, put up some of the archives on there, and kind of hook people that way. Next question here from Reddit user Baby Whack. Where does Naito get his tailoring done? Is it custom? And to Sam said, is a stats guy, what color suit has the highest winning percentage? White, black, red? Did he wear red? So yeah, I know nothing about Naito's tailoring. I have no idea if it's custom or not. I'm thinking maybe it is since he has the cape and all. And I don't know if you have a section in your stats for the suit color.
I don't, and I won't. And I know there are people on the internet that track things like that. And not to big league anybody, but I will not be going far back in the archives and looking at Naito's suit color. My bet would be though that his tailor is his tailoring is all custom, and my bet would be he's got someone who's very invested because he's had some pretty intricate stuff over the years.
Yeah.
And his pants open from the side.
Yeah, so that's definitely some custom stuff there.
Yeah, I mean that's the real deal. That's custom stuff, and you'd never know it until he starts very slowly peeling off the Velcro on down the side.
Next question here from Reddit user Brian James Interactive. Hope I get this in time for the recording. Realize I may miss the boat. Been on my mind for a while. I've been pretty on research-wise with the continued spread of the coronavirus, and it's my thoughts/expectation that shows may continue to be canceled for up to a year, given the measures some countries are needing to go to. My question is, in a worst-case situation of, say, 6 months of continued disruption, how can New Japan feasibly make sure to keep their momentum? Wrestling is unique that is constantly mutating, live absorbed story, so there must be a complete break of 6 months. Do you think there might be considerable drop-off of fans given the relatively broken story? What could they do to combat this?
I don't know. I mean, like it's a weird situation. It's a really weird situation. We're going to look back at this in 10 or 15 years and this is going to be kind of one of those things that we remember, like, it's like the 1994 World Series that never happened, right? Like, it might turn into the year that either has a lot of starts and stops, or the New Japan Cup that never happened, or the G1 that happened in October, right? It's kind of a wacky year to begin with.
Right, yeah.
But with that said, if Tokyo is hosting the Olympics, there can be some pro wrestling shows.
Yeah.
Like that I truly believe. If they are willing to say it's safe for the Olympics to come here, for everyone to travel here, for international travelers to come to see it, international athletes to come and participate. If Tokyo can run the Olympics, and I think that is truly the priority, and why that they're taking, Japan was the first country that we saw take this extremely seriously outside of China. I think that has a lot to do with it. And when those Olympics go live, I think so does the Hokkaido tour. I think so does all of the shows, all of the pro wrestling you could ever want that was booked to be in and around Japan at that time. So I think that 6 months is, I guess that's a little less than 6 months away at this point. If they're dark until then, I'd be really curious to see how they're going to build it back up. But they're going to have to do some stuff that's really fan friendly.
Yeah.
And I think that's, and they're still going to have a tough time getting the drawing power back up immediately. People are not going to go out like they had been. I think it's going to be a, maybe not necessarily a slow grow, but you're going to have to build back up to that. And, but they're going to have to do some stuff that's super fan friendly. That's very thankful for fans to stick with them. And I think they will. I think that they know that. I think that they've shown that they respect their fans' health and well-being and time, and they appreciate everything that their fans, both in the West and in Japan, have done for them. So I think that I wouldn't call it a considerable drop off, but I think you might see some drop off in live gates, and I think you might see the opportunity to grow and build back pretty quickly by giving them some pretty big payoffs.
Yeah, and I think with that huge of a break, there's definitely some ways to shift things around where they can come back immediately with like a super card type show and have like a big show with some big title matches. I think that would generate interest and kind of bring people back in. But yeah, 6 months is a long time, and so I'm gonna be praying and hoping it's not that long and that things can get started back up soon, maybe just even next month here in April, and then kind of go from there. Next question from Reddit user Bravo Tango Zulu. With Nakanishi retired, who will be Nagata's main tag team partner? A young lion like Tsuji? Someone whose last World Tag League partner is currently tag team champion with someone else like Kanare? Someone different, or nobody?
I don't know. I think he might rotate the young lions for a little bit. I don't see him picking up another like core, dad tag guy. I hope not someone like Hanare. Like I said earlier, I want to see him get out of that mix, get out of that young lion and old dad's mix. But yeah, and I think it's interesting that Nagata is coming over to do the Ring of Honor tour, or the Ring of Honor,
the Pure tournament.
Tournament. Yeah, the Pure tournament. I think that I think he may be on one of his last maybe 2 years. I don't know. I think they're going to keep doing these kind of February retirements. And he's one of the last of that generation still going. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with him and where he lands and who he kind of buddies up with.
Yeah, I think there's probably a potential for him and Kojima to team more. I know Tenzan is still there, but Tenzan's in pretty rough shape himself. And we did see on the New Beginning in USA tours, Nagata and Kojima team up. So I think for like a World Tag League, we could see Nagata, Kojima with that multiple date tour, with those two guys kind of teaming together as a main team there. Which I'm all in on more Kojima.
Yeah, more Kojima is always fine.
Then last question here from Reddit user DomHomie101. Would you guys rather have a shitty wrestling match with a great build-up, or would you rather have a great wrestling match with a shitty build-up? He says, who else is going through an NJPW withdrawal?
Most of us.
Yeah.
I don't think a great wrestling match with a shitty build-up exists.
I'm trying to think.
Because I don't think it happens in a vacuum like that.
Right. Yeah,
I think it all plays together.
Yeah, I guess it just depends on how. Because I know for you said like you can't just watch a match of the year kind of candidate in a vacuum and be like, all right, 5 stars. Like you got to need the whole thing. And so I don't know. I'm thinking kind of like, so for example, like the Cody and Shawn Spears match. I felt like that match had a great build, but then when the match, I don't think the match delivered to the build.
I agree.
So in a situation like that, like I think I would rather have a bad build up, and then the show comes and the match is like 5 or 4.5, whatever. It's a great match because the last memory you have is like, all right, that match was great. The other way around, like the build up happens, but then you remember the crappy match they had, and it was like, yeah, those promos are great, but then they went out there and it was gentleman's 3 match. So that's how I would go with it.
I agree. I do think that bad wrestling matches with good builds exist.
Yeah.
It's never been how I've watched wrestling. And I live in this world of kind of wrestling media, which is it's matches, it's all matches, match of the year, this stars that. And I love it. I pay so much attention to it. It's just not how I choose to look at it, I guess. Mm-hmm. So I don't know which of these I would rather have. I mean, I really enjoy good buildups, but it's all encompassing, right? I mean, like even back to The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin, right? Or The Rock and Hogan, or Cena and The Rock, and all those kind of WrestleMania matches, like those wrestling matches, like no one's giving those wrestling matches even the Gentleman's 3 if you're just watching it as a match. You watch Hogan and Rock on mute, and like, what are you watching? You're watching some weird old dude with bad hair and The Rock kind of go after it, and like, but you watch it with the sound turned on and with some understanding of how they got there, and you're gonna pay it some deference, right? So I don't know. This is tough. I love this question. It's a fun one for me because of, because I can't just watch a match, and it's probably because I'm just like, I've never tuned myself into watching wrestling that way, which is just like the pure physicality and the beautiful, kind of violent dance of it. Like I need some story, but not Gato all the time.
Right.
So it's cool. This is a cool question. I will think about this question more and probably, message DomHomie101 on Reddit. So, because I like this one a lot.
Yeah, I think the hard thing with this is like either way, I feel you're kind of wasting time. Like if you have a bad bill, you're enduring and wasting time watching this bad bill to finally get to that great match. And then the other way around, like you spent so much time invested in the great build, and then the match happens and it was a waste of time. So it's like, either or is like not perfect, but yeah, I definitely lean on. I'd rather just have the great matchup because at least I can say, all right, I endured all that pain, and like,
yeah, I guess it's all about what you remember last, right?
Yeah,
so I guess the good match with a bad build will still outweigh the good build with the bad match.
Yeah.
So because there's nothing worse than a payoff that's not a payoff.
Yeah. All right, that's it for all the questions. Thanks to everybody who submitted. And then last thing here before we go, recommended match of the week. So my recommended match of the week for you guys to watch is Kazuchika Okada versus Katsuyori Shibata from Sakura Genesis 2017. Shibata winning the New Japan Cup that year, going to Sakura Genesis to challenge Okada in his last match in New Japan. Just an epic classic, one for the books. If you have not seen this match, you definitely need to watch that this week.
With a great build.
Yes, it's a great build and a great match, so you won't waste your time watching this. All right. Before we get out of here, Chris, give your plugs. Tell people where they can find you online.
Sure. Best place to find me online is on Twitter at the Chris Samsa. That's the ChrisSamsa. My website is sportofprowrestling.com, where I cover New Japan. All my New Japan stats are there, going back to G1 stats and current stats and 2019 stats and pretty much everything you could ever want to know about their in-ring wrestlers' in-ring performances. And then I cover New Japan for Voices of Wrestling, and I provide statistical content and some history and research for the English broadcast team. And I cover AEW for PW Torch with a weekly column over there. All of it branded under the Sport of Pro Wrestling column.
Nice. So tons of places to find Chris. Check out his work. And thanks again, man, for filling in for the young boy this week.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I cannot believe we got almost 3 hours out of nothing.
I know. I'm looking at the clock. I'm like, how did we just do a 3 hour show?
It's because I'm here. All I do are marathons with you guys.
Yeah, man. That's what I said. I brought the heavy hitter in, the big draw, the main eventer.
Jeez, I don't know about all that, but man, I mean, good time. I told my wife, I was like, I don't know, man. I don't know even how we're going to get 2 hours out of this thing. And here we are looking at.
Yeah, she's probably like, where the heck are you? So, next week, the young boy will be back. I don't know what we're going to talk about. Hopefully there's some kind of news of what's going on with the future plans. Maybe there will be a show or something. Hopefully there will be something, but once again, next week we'll be back and we'll put together a show of something. We'll see what happens. So if you enjoyed today's show, please consider making a donation, visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and clicking on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. Make sure you connect with us on social media. On Twitter, I am at Jeremy L. Donovan. The show is at KI Strong Style. Also follow us at Social Suplex. On Facebook, we're facebook.com/Social Suplex. Also in the Wrestling Squared Circle Facebook group, facebook.com/Wrestling Squared Circle. On Instagram, we are at Social Suplex. On Reddit, I'm the Pro Black Guy. Josh is Keeping It Strong Style. You can email me, Jeremy at socialsuplex.com. We also just launched a Social Suplex Discord server. So if you're on Discord and want some more wrestling chatter, hop on over to the Social Suplex Discord. Check out all the other shows on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. On Sundays, we have One Nation Radio, hosted by Rich Latta and James Boyd. On Wednesdays, we have Grown Men Watch This Shit. Ricky and Clive is taking a little hiatus right now, so hopefully those guys will be back soon. On Fridays, we have Get in the Ring with Danny and Beast Mike. And on Saturdays, we have All Things Elite with Floyd, Tiffany, and Amy. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a rating and review, and we will catch you next week on Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts.
Thank you for listening to Keepin' It Strong Style. We'll see you next time.